106 miles to Chicago. We got a full tank of gas, half a pack of cigarettes. It's dark, and we're wearing sunglasses. Hit it.
Not sure what's going on that end. Welcome, everybody. Sorry for the late start. Sorry for the, I look very pink like I'm having a heart attack. Look from the camera here because I had some issues resetting my camera since I was using it on a trip in Los Angeles. So I hope you can deal with the extra rosy Jerry on camera tonight. Welcome to another Friday night edition of Chicago Corner. I'm your host, Jerry Vasilatos. A lot going on. Apologies again for the late start. A lot of technical difficulties on this end. And before I bring my guest host or my co-host Ed on, I want to address a couple things in the chat right now. Kathy Powers asks, why did the Facebook Chicago Corner change its name to Hardlens Media? Well, Kathy, Hardlens Media was the original Facebook page on Facebook before it was passed along to me to manage for Chicago Corner because Hardlens Media wasn't using that Facebook presence. So we've been undergoing some changes here that we're going to announce very shortly in relation to Chicago Corner forming into its own entity. We're very excited about that, but in doing handoffs last week, apparently a lot of things were turned off and cut off, which has contributed to a lot of the technical issues that we've been having here. That's been stressful for all of us. So we hope to get it all under control and hope that we will go into smoother sailing as we move forward and continue to commit to our civic duty here on Chicago Corner, bringing you news from across the city and soon across the nation. More on that soon. So let me introduce and bring on and welcome my co-host, Mr. Edward Heller. For as long as our buffering works here. And of course, I thought that I hit the right background and I didn't. This is the background that I prefer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Gotham.
That's
yes,
right.
Gotham's much better.
Because Chicago is Gotham.
Yeah, so happy Friday to you, Jerry.
Thank you. I didn't have a chance to fill up on Jack and Coke, so I just got water here.
Well, I'm just drinking the green sugar water known as Green River. Had
good.
One left over from the previous weekend. Tasty nuclear lime beverage.
And, I wish I had some. No, he didn't, Kathy. He didn't play with my camera. When I was using my camera in La La Land on a set with a crew, that were actually there to support and help us, they had to set my camera settings for the lighting on that set. So now that I came back, I'm struggling to fix things so that the lighting here is the same before the show, and I didn't realize this was going to be an issue.
And it looks like you got a little color while you were out there, Jerry.
I think that's the camera settings.
So no, I think you got a little more tan while you were out there on the West Coast, Mr. Vasilatos.
Thank you, Ed. Yeah, I tried to get some sun, but so I was staying at this hotel that was close to the studio we were shooting these informational videos at, and I don't swim enough. It's I'm always I need to make time to swim. I've got a health club membership that I don't use, and there was a pool there, and I'm like, oh, great, I can swim in the mornings before I go to set, and at 10 in the morning, the pool is freezing cold, even though they don't heat the pools, even though it was right outside my window. So I went out, realized I couldn't swim, but I did sit in the patio for a little bit. So I did get a little bit of color. Yeah, thank you, Lainey. I did get a little bit of glow up, I guess. So it's been a big week since I've been gone. I thought that you and Kira magnificently handled Tuesday's show. I was watching from Los Angeles, and you know what a control freak I am. It's not that I didn't think you guys couldn't handle it, but I'm always like, whether it's the intros or just getting social media stuff set up and stuff. It was a really, really good show, and I thought you guys did a great job. As much as I missed being able to participate and comment, it was fun to be on the other side and just comment in the chat and listen to you guys share your viewpoints and your commentary without.
Well, I'm glad you got a chance to tune in from out there. I mean, I still feel like very much a newbie as far as hosting the show goes, although I'm much more comfortable than I was when I started. But still, it's a lot of buttons to press and a lot of cats to wrangle, so to speak, behind the scenes. Cats to herd, balls to juggle. Pick your metaphor. It's a lot and you want to plan ahead. You're gathering your stories, but also you want to manage your stories as you're running through the show. See, okay, well, am I still going to cover this one? Should we save this for next week? Because a lot of the we very often will go long on a story if we think it's important to talk about it for a while. And so I think it's better for us just to keep giving you the content than to worry about whether we got all the stories in. Even so, I think we did pretty good. I think it was like one or two stories that didn't actually get done on Tuesday. And most of those are things we're going to follow up on eventually anyway.
Well, Ed, I would go extra and say you did really good. We've talked about this in the past. When I invited you to come on and co-host like a couple years ago, I know that you weren't used to being on the air, but I really, really, honestly, truly say you've come into your own. And I was so impressed and happy with how you were hosting on Tuesday with, Kira co-hosting. It's like if anything ever happened and I couldn't be here, I think that the show would be in really good hands with you and Kira. So I was just like, wow, cool. I'm not needed. And that's in a good way.
Yeah. Well, and let me say, I was so glad Kira was there because sometimes it's just nice to have someone else on the show to bounce things off of and get the different perspective. And when you're rolling solo, it's very, it's like, yeah, you're basically on a soapbox for an hour and a half, right? Or unless you're, actively going back and forth with the people in the live chat, which we do from time to time as well. Thank you, Warren.
I can't stand being on a soapbox. That's why when I first came on to Chicago Corner, we were juggling co-hosts because it's like, I don't want this to be a monologue. It's like, it's more interesting when there's conversation amongst people with, either differing views or closely aligned views. So we can really examine and dissect stuff. So yeah, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad Kira was able to drop in when she can, and we'll keep moving forward with our changes that we're going to be introducing pretty soon. Maybe in the next week or so, we'll talk a little bit more after we get stuff set up that we're excited about. So it's been a big week on the mayoral rush to the finish line, and Ed shared this article with me in our Slack that came to us from Northwestern University, and even though there we go, it's been added now. And I've been saying this for the past several weeks because I've had people outside Chicago asking me about the mayoral race, and I'm like, it's going to be won by a razor thin margin. And Northwestern now comments on this. New poll shows dead heat between Chicago mayoral candidates. And as we unwrap this sprint to the finish line in tonight's show, which I believe will be our last show prior to the election, it's on the 4th. It's on Tuesday. We'll be doing another election results show on Tuesday. Right.
And I have a correction. Originally, I had said that it is also Deep Dish Pizza Day, but National Deep Dish Pizza Day is April 5th. It's the next day. But
people will be able to celebrate with the pizza of their choice, whoever wins the next day.
But look, if your pizza's ready to go and you're all set for eating pizza while you watch us on Tuesday, that's cool with me. Or you could eat pizza 2 days in a row. Wouldn't make a habit of that. Jerry will get nervous.
Well, I get nervous, or I'm already, trying to eat nutritionally because I noticed my weight went up. So, as much as I love my pizza.
But didn't you know, Jerry, that pizza's a vegetable?
Parts of pizza are vegetable. The tomato part.
I believe there was a school system thing where they classified pizza as your daily source of vegetables, or something like that.
It's got your vegetables, it's got your protein, depending on which meats you have. Yeah. What kills you, I think, is the carbs in the crust, and that's like almost the yummiest part of the pizza.
Well, sure. I mean, carbs, it's a hit or miss depending on your metabolism. I think most people's concern is the high calorie count because of the extra fat in the cheese.
That too, yeah.
So, I mean, look, it's a sometimes food, and you got to pick your battles on there. One slice of deep dish sausage pizza is about somewhere between 500 and 600 calories. So that's a normal dinner portion there. But you can't really eat too much else after that unless you got, you're counting your calories, whatever.
As we were about to start our story on the Northwestern University poll.
And yes, Kathy, you could also have tacos on Tuesday when we do election results.
All right. So let's get into the poll.
Okay, I'm done.
Thank you. Not that I don't love talking about our pizza, but we usually save it to the end of the show.
I know.
All right. So the poll shows likely voters slightly favor Vallis, but turnout is hard to predict. And I think that is going to be the big deciding factor. Are we going to have a better turnout for the actual election than we had for the runoff than we had for the primary? 1/3 of Latinos think Vallis may be Latino. No, he's Greek.
What?
Although I get mistaken for Hispanic quite often, but no, Vallis is not Latino. Latinos, please, he's a white guy.
It's Paul Vallas.
43% of voters say they have not been contacted by campaigns. I find that extraordinarily interesting because I'm getting text bombed by Vallis or phone bombed by Brandon Johnson's people literally every day. And with Vallis's people, when they ask me if I'm supporting him via text, I send them the graphic of Brandon Johnson versus Vallis the Vulture with a simple no. And whenever Brandon Johnson people get me on the phone and I'm right in the middle of something, I'm like, save your spiel. No worries. I am voting for Johnson. Gotta go. Just coming through. Emergency alert. If you haven't already heard, severe thunderstorm warning in effect for this area until 9 p.m. Central Standard Time for destructive 90-mile-per-hour winds. 90 miles an hour, guys. Cow. Take shelter in a sturdy building away from windows. Flying debris may be deadly to those caught without shelter. Now, this emergency alert on my phone is tuned in to my GPS. So, yeah, there you go. That's what we're all seeing.
Let me put that to the and we're almost back.
And by the way, Ed, there's some like weird scratchy noise when you talk. I'm not sure if there's something up against your microphone.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
It could be me breathing, but I will see if I can undo the scratchy noises. I got papers rustling. It could be that.
I think it's papers rustling. Yeah, because it's not when I'm talking, and I don't think it's my microphone. But all right, so 43% of voters say they have not been contacted by campaigns. Key issues include crime, police reform, and cost of living. With 1 week remaining until Chicago's mayoral runoff election on April 4th, Northwestern University Center for the Study of Diversity and Democracy and a coalition of Black and Latino nonprofits released the results of a second nonpartisan poll showing candidates Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallis in a neck-and-neck race to the finish line. Overall, the choice among voters is evenly split between Vallis and Johnson, with each candidate earning 44% of the overall vote, with 12% undecided. When broken down by race and ethnicity, Black registered voters favor Johnson by a wide margin. 55% have decided to vote for or lean towards Johnson. Hey, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Is this the problem with the microphone?
Check 1 2.
No, I'm on I thought maybe it was using my desktop mic, but it's my laptop, but it's not. It's got this microphone. I'm not touching anything, and I'm hearing some like people in the chat hearing that.
I don't hear it.
You don't hear it, so maybe it's just something on my end. All right.
All right. Well, if a tornado's approaching you, you should take cover, Jerry. If that's what that is.
Yeah. All right. Where was I in the article?
When
Okay.
broken down
Race
by
and ethnicity. Black registered voters favor Johnson by a wide margin. 55% have decided to vote for or lean toward Johnson versus 28% favoring Vallis. Among Latino registered voters, 46% favor Vallis, while 35% favor Johnson. Registered white voters are the most split between candidates, with 51% voting for or leaning towards Vallis and 42% for Johnson. One interesting finding is that 1/3 of Latinos think Vallis also may be Latino. With so many voters still undecided, candidates have a great opportunity to improve their chances of victory by reaching out to their constituents, say the coalition members. When asked if a campaign or local organization has asked them to vote, 43% of potential voters citywide say they have not been contacted. Among Latinos, 47% say they have not been contacted, and 46% of Black registered voters say they have not been contacted. Whites reported higher contact rates at 62%, which might account for all of the text and phone bombing that I'm getting. Why do you think, Ed? Do you think probably it's because, unfortunately, more whites come out to vote than minorities?
Like a demographic type situation, that would make sense.
Yeah. Versus 38% who have not been contacted. This suggests both candidates still have time to influence the election with increased outreach, especially to minority voters. BSP research conducted for the poll. I don't have my contacts in. BSP research conducted the poll. Northwestern and the Coalition of Black and Latino Nonprofits, including Hispanic Federation, Illinois Black Advocacy Initiative, Latino Policy Forum, and Latino Victory Project, developed and funded the poll to better understand the issues mobilizing Black and Latino Chicago voters. The wild card on April 4th is the Latino vote, said Jamie Dominguez, Associate Professor of Instruction in Northwestern's Department of Political Science and CSDD Research Affiliate. Quote, and neither candidate appears to have a lock on this electorate, yet turnout will be critical given the Latino share of undecideds. Even if 1/3 of Latino voters think that Vallis is a co-ethnic, the Latino vote is still a very diverse and multi-dimensional collective. So targeted outreach efforts will be critical in the coming days. So, that really does speak very much to the whole neck and neck quality of this sprint to the finish line.
Yeah, I thought I saw something a little further down, and so while that guy said he still thinks that the Latino vote is kind of a toss-up, I'm not so sure. And
I hope you're right.
And there was a section. I don't know if we're going to go and read the rest of this, but there was a section about Lightfoot and Garcia voters.
I closed it just because we have a long show, but if you want to jump ahead and share that, go ahead. I can get the next story queue.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to just to point out was this section here where it says voters who said they supported Lightfoot and Garcia in the primary were asked which candidate they are supporting in the runoff election. Among Lightfoot voters, 41% say they will support Johnson and 22% Vallis, with 37% still undecided. Among Garcia voters, 38% indicate they will vote for Vallis and 34% for Johnson. Among Garcia voters, 27% indicate they are still undecided. And those are the ones that I think we should really focus on because we weren't sure which way they were going to go. And it sounds to me like they're leaning toward Brandon.
And thankfully, Jesus the Stash Garcia came out and endorsed Johnson, which when you look at the demographics of how the city voted, the West Side was primarily won by Garcia. So when Garcia came out for Johnson, hopefully that will help drive those votes that were on the West Side for him into Johnson's camp. I've got a cat here who insists on moving my microphone. Do you have something you want to say, or you just want to be a pest? All right.
Like, hey, I'm your producer, and you can't just kick me out of the studio. I am the stream cat. Remember that.
That's what he tells us. Yeah, I know. He missed me while I was gone. All right, so shifting into our next story, wouldn't you know? Right in the last week of we forgot about Palos Paul living in Palos Heights and basically renting a bachelor pad in Bridgeport, which completely speaks to how disingenuous he is about being a Chicagoan and understanding the issues here. What do you think they decided to focus on this last week of the election? The black man who didn't pay his water bills. Right?
So dumb.
Isn't that the subtext of it all? And let me also say, he didn't pay his water bills. I'm sorry. Water bills are too fucking high to begin with. Okay? We fall behind on our water bills given how extraordinary they are. So, yeah,
all
utilities
are too high.
Yeah. All utilities are too high. Which I would think no matter what the man's salary is, it speaks to the fact that utilities are just too goddamn high to begin with. But that they trot this out while they've forgotten about Vallis's questionable residency issues and something else I'm also going to bring up on the tail end of this. Let's run this video, Ed. Do you have it queued?
Yep.
All right. Love. I mean, it's just like, what else is new? Let's run this.
I'm going to make the final payment before I get sworn in.
Brandon Johnson today spoke publicly for the first time about thousands of dollars that he owes the city of Chicago in back water bills, traffic tickets, and other debts. By law, he cannot take a city job until those debts are paid.
Our political editor, Mike Flannery, joins us now with more on that. Mike?
Tia and Dawn, County Commissioner Johnson, who reportedly makes a combined $175,000 a year from the Chicago Teachers Union in Cook County, was asked today how, in light of the debts that he owes the city, voters should trust him to manage the multi-billion-dollar city budget.
Oh, what a friggin' cop-out.
We have a man who's running for mayor who's never lived in the city of Chicago. And they're worried about Brandon Johnson's water bill.
Here's another way in which we can ask that question. Is the mayor of Chicago, Brandon Johnson, so good at arranging payment plans that he'll be good enough to become the mayor of the city of Chicago to deal with the structural deficit that the previous administration didn't take care of?
Johnson's runoff election rival Paul Vallis addressed the issue as he met with the anti-violence group Black Men United today. Vallis said he favors offering a payment amnesty to Chicagoans who cannot afford to pay water bills and other debts, but not to those in Johnson's income bracket.
He makes a pensionable salary as obviously being a county commissioner, and he also gets anywhere from, I don't know, $85,000 to $100,000 as a paid consultant for the Chicago Teachers Union. When you make that much, $175,000, you pay your bills.
County Commissioner Johnson did not explain why he needed to negotiate a payment plan for his debts to the city. As we've said, until they're settled, he's not eligible to take any job at City Hall, including mayor. I'm political editor Mike Flannery.
Oh, and also, Palos Paul would totally privatize that debt and make sure that it's a whole lot more interest rates on top of that because it's so much better to have private debt rather than public debt. No, it isn't, Paul.
And just a quick update for everybody that's so concerned about Johnson's water bills. The water bills have been paid. Marianne Ahern reports, as my Twitter is struggling to load, the unpaid city bills, water and traffic tickets are now paid. End of story. But while everybody is clutching their pearls, you got that up there, Ed?
Oh, the other one?
Yeah. So, while everybody's clutching their pearls about the water bill, our friend on Twitter, Omega Man, reports Paul Vallis, who lives in Bridgeport, fun fact, doesn't have a city sticker on his car. Maybe the media can ask if he plans on buying one if he wins.
Yeah, or maybe...
Isn't it funny how that works, Ed?
Yeah, or shouldn't
Is
he
that funny
be
how that works?
purchasing that sticker before he becomes mayor, Jerry? If he's a
Shouldn't he have,
resident,
shouldn't he have,
because
shouldn't he have
won't
purchased
he
that
get
sticker a
penalties?
year ago when he shouldn't he have purchased that sticker a year ago when he rented the bachelor pad in Bridgeport?
Yes, Jerry. In fact, he'll have to pay penalties because he didn't buy that sticker. They may give you what do they call it, an amnesty if it's your first year in the city, but then that just goes more toward the fact that he's from Palos Heights.
Yeah, I agree. In the live chat here, Mad Matt in Chicago says Johnson should have turned this into an attack on Vallis, not be defensive. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now they are paid constitutional conservative. How do you feel about the city sticker, constitutional conservative? Let's slow down. I want to read some of these comments. Comments because I can't load it on my end, unfortunately, because of the memory issues. All right.
Yeah. The next one, Don, you want me to read?
Yeah. Paul Vallis certainly didn't like it when Chicago residents didn't have a city sticker back when he was the city budget director. So why doesn't Vallis have a city sticker on his car now? Scroll down. You can read the rest. I can't. This scrolling issue with the buffering it's just driving me crazy. I can't do a show without my memory getting eaten up like this at 42%.
I got you, man. Still the best meme of this election season. I tip my hat to whoever made this, Omega Man says, and here it is. I sleep in a racing car in Bridgeport. Do you? I sleep in a big bed with my wife.
And Constitutional Conservative reports Johnson only paid his bills after being caught, and to be mayor speaks volumes. Really, Lou? What about the city sticker issue? What about the homestead exemption in Palos Heights? What about living in the city to run for mayor after you never lived here while leaving your mother in the care of your wife because you have privatization interests to serve who are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to make sure you're mayor so that you can serve their interests, not the public's?
Yeah. Salty Suburban 29 says, I'm sure he just expects his cop buddies to overlook it. To which Omega Man, aka at Tavern Styled, says, they don't write parking tickets in Bridgeport.
Kathy has got a poem for us that I'm trying to load up here. Palos Paul, there once was a con man named Vallis, known for his greed and so callous. To close public schools was one of his rules. It kept him from Chi-Town's rich palace. Love it. Arturo shares. Oh, suddenly my browser's working because I shut down my extra Chrome screen. So Vallis has a city sticker in his car. It's his mistress' car that doesn't have a city sticker. His mistress's car. I'll bet Brandon has a city sticker on his car because they ticket on the south side. Of course he does. You can't go without a city sticker down there. So yeah, let's also, I wanted to mention before we go further, I'm sorry I was remiss in mentioning our patrons on Patreon, Kathy Powers, Dr. Howard Ehrman, and of course Dominic Palella. We lost 2 patrons, and that's fine. But I remember when you and Kira on Tuesday, we're giving credit to our Patreons. I was correcting you guys in the chat who our patrons are. Yeah. So looks like we've got a very lively live chat tonight. We've got who's in our live chat with us? Of course, Uncle Warren, Miguel H, Kathy Powers, Vernon DB. Who else is with us tonight? Where Pilgrim, welcome one and all. Extra Bola, Constitutional Conservative. Lively chat tonight. Lainey Peterson, of course. Thank you, Lainey, for joining us. Miguel H. Listen, everybody, I'm sorry. I know I'm like a little bit off my game tonight. I'm just with all the technical issues and other stuff we've been dealing with. Just cut me a little slack here tonight as I'm trying to keep up with this stuff because my computer's slow. And I'm normally used to being able to open the article to read while also having on screen on my end, but Ed's going to open those screens so that I've only got one screen open on this end, so I don't have these technical issues.
Technical note, Chrome gave me a notification on the latest version that it has a memory saver option. If you can download your latest version in the future, it might give you the option too. So it'll turn off the memory on the tabs you're not currently using.
I did actually see that pop up when I logged in earlier today, and I did click yes. I don't know if it's installed or not, but I'm still dealing with issues here even after.
Well, it could just be the gremlins.
Yeah. All right. So, we had a debate the other day, which I reviewed today because I wanted to be as up to date as I could be on both candidates in this final debate. Now, I got to say this, Ed. Mm-hmm. As much as we are very supportive of Brandon Johnson, I wasn't that impressed with his debate performance, nor Vallis's. I don't think one or the other came out on top.
They are hit and miss.
Yeah, Vallis was sputtering like a bad carburetor. And in some of the clips that we're going to show from the debate and comment on, I only hope that, Johnson, when he wins, is able to perform a little bit better under pressure like that, because it shook me up a little bit. Somehow he wasn't able to come up with an answer for something. So I can hear the wind starting. My windows are rattling. But let's go to this first clip from the debate, because I have it titled in the show notes as Vallis never knows who he's fundraising for. Vallis never seems to know who he's aligned with. And then, as we'll also talk about in a follow-up story, he will take donations from people that he disavows, but it seems to also play into who he decides to ally himself with and then disassociate himself with after he's called out on it. So let's play this.
Mr. Vallis, this is for you. In an interview in 2009, you said you were more Republican than Democrat. When pressed about that now, you often point to your connections with some Democrats as proof you are not a Republican. But let's look at your actions from just a few months ago. You participated in a fundraiser for a far right-wing group, Awake Illinois, June of last year. They have made widely documented homophobic and transphobic statements and opposed COVID safety measures in our schools. At a time when every decision you make counts and voters likely expect that you were very strategic with giving your time to events as a candidate, why did you support Awake Illinois?
Well, first of all, I didn't support Awake Illinois. Actually, the invitation came from a school choice group that supports the scholarship program.
Pause it for a sec. So if he or his people are not going to vet who he goes and makes appearances for and fundraisers for, how are we supposed to take his claims that he can manage City Hall, better than Brandon Johnson because Brandon Johnson overlooked his water bills? When you can't figure out who you're showing up for, and the fact that they are a homophobic organization that regularly engages in, attack politics. But he didn't know. Let's play more.
His handlers tell him to show up places, and he shows up.
Well, okay, but if my handlers
and he's a really big liar.
Well, that's the bigger part of it, Ed. If my handlers told me to show up places, I would want to know where I'm showing up and who I'm showing up with, because I would never, ever want to discover that people that I'm aligning with are basically involved in things that I don't agree with ethically, morally, or politically.
And at the end of the day, it was a panel discussion to raise money for Reverend Cory Booker. And
for who?
So what? I went to that event.
Did he say Cory Brooks, or was he talking about somebody else? It's hard to say.
That's the sputtering carburetor, Paul Vallis.
Speed Buggy, I guess we'll call him from now.
Yeah, Speed Buggy Vallis.
The Palos Paul, the Speed Buggy candidate.
Assuming that was the fundraiser. Once I learned that Awake Illinois was one of the organizations that were sponsoring the panel discussion and the fundraiser, one of the co-sponsors, I immediately denounced them and I criticized them. And obviously,
that's like a thing with you, Paul. Every time they find some sponsor, somebody who's donated money to you, and immediately he's denouncing them, but he's still going to take their money, or he's not taking their money, but he'll still take their endorsement. He
claimed he's not taking any money from the Fraternal Order of the Police, despite accepting their endorsement. I'm not, I don't care if it's worse to me that he's taking their endorsement than not taking any money from them.
And the truth is, we don't know if the FOP is giving him money because there are super PACs out there that are probably taking their money.
And we're going to get into that in a little while too.
So I condemn them. I've had a lifelong history. I've supported marriage equality when it was called gay marriage in 2000. And when I was city school chief, I actually put domestic partners in all the contracts. So I've had a long record of supporting LGBT rights. And it was a mistake. I should have vetted who was inviting me to the fundraiser, but I was invited to participate in a panel discussion for a fundraiser for
So,
for
Mr.
Reverend Cory
Vallis,
Brookers.
just to be clear, though, with them being a sponsor, they were a dominant part with an affiliation to it. So if you're saying that this was an accident or a failure to vet, how can voters be confident that there won't be the same missteps
Thank
if you
you.
are mayor?
Well, obviously, I'll be better at vetting in the future. But at the
No, he
time,
won't.
I
No, he
would
won't.
always attend fundraisers when I was invited. I mean, events when I was invited, particularly panel discussions on school choice. Very often, there would be counterpoint on the issues of educational opportunities. So, I was a regular participant. So obviously, I should have done a better job vetting. I did apologize for that, and I won't make the same mistake twice.
Okay,
right,
I don't really believe that.
don't
To
believe
be
anything,
fair, to be the least amount of fair to Paul Vallis, he gets invited to a lot of stuff, and he shows up to most of them.
He does, because he has a lot of people he's got to pander to.
We were slightly surprised at the forum that Jerry and I covered that he showed up to that one on the South Side. So, but yeah,
He did. He showed up to forums that Garcia and Lightfoot didn't, so we did give him that. And I saw on Twitter yesterday, I think, or maybe earlier today, he was out handing out groceries with our old friend Jamal Green on the South Side. Did you see that on Twitter?
I think you passed that on to me, and I'm just
Jamal
like,
put him to work.
man, that's it. That's all it is. He's trying to get.
He will never show up.
2% of vote support, and I don't
Right.
even think it's that. Honestly, I don't even think he has 2% support anymore because he probably pissed off a lot of his base.
And mark my words, Palos Paul will never show up to that neighborhood again if he wins the 5th floor. Nor will Jamal be getting any kind of a seat at the table or appointment by Palos Paul.
Yeah,
I'm calling
Paul,
it
you should have run for mayor of Palos Heights
Yeah.
or wherever the hell you're from, because it isn't Chicago.
So let's go to the next video.
Next video?
Next
Okay.
highlight from the next highlight from the debate, which is his dog. It's his dog whistle issue, and they called him out on it.
Mr. Vallis, you were successful in the primary while running on one issue, crime. What do you plan to do to reduce crime in the South and West Side neighborhoods of Chicago?
Well, let me point out that I think I was successful because I ran on multiple issues. In fact, at my city club presentation, I actually talked about the need to invest.
Pause it for a second. Did we get invitations to this big city club meeting that only the elites of Chicago can attend?
No, I mean, that City Club place looks pretty nice, though, Jerry. I mean, it'd be nice to get invited there, but I mean,
It's pretty ritzy when all the candidates can go share their big plans for the rest of the city of Chicago in the private closed doors of the City Club, where all the movers and shakers and business people and high net worth individuals regularly congregate.
yeah. And Lou, saying that we downplaying an endorsement from a guy who got 2% and probably only got at best half of his previous base to support and go along with this farce. It's not inconsistent with what we've been saying.
And let me address this also directly, Ed, regarding Jamal Green. I was wrong. I was horribly, horribly wrong, and I admit it. Jamal Green was a very good speaker. I still think a lot of the plans and proposals and policies he proposed were sound.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think now that Jamal Green is out for himself. And sadly, it's a layer of the onion that's been peeled back. This guy we're talking about right now is not going to do anything for the South and West sides of the city. Okay? He's going to continue what Rahm Emanuel and Lori Lightfoot did in serving specifically his private donors and all the rich and elite people of the rest of the city. And you know what? Brandon Johnson also has to engage business, but I think that Brandon Johnson's also going to make things equitable for the rest of us. Palos Paul is going to be serving the GOP that he disavows. You know what? This is the GOP's move on Chicago with this guy who pretends he's not a Republican in Democrats' clothing. That's what this is all about. So as far as, and isn't it interesting too? I was called a clown by Constitutional Conservative for supporting and believing in Jamal Green. And it's so funny now, Constitutional Conservative. Doesn't the fact that Jamal Green now endorse and support Paul Vallas make Paul Vallas a clown, Constitutional Conservative? You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. You mocked him as a candidate before, but now that he's gotten behind your candidate for his own self-interest, now you think Jamal Green is spouting the truth. Sorry, buddy. You can't have it both ways. Yes, and this is exactly what it comes to. Because you know what else I always hear from Constitution Conservative? You voted for Obama the first time. The second time, I realigned because I saw he wasn't serving the progressive constituents he claimed he was going to serve. And Obama, once he showed me who he was, I believed it. We have to go on a barometer of listening to people present who they are and what they think. And that's our only litmus test to hope when we hook our trailers to their candidacy, they're going to follow through. But the moment they don't, and I've said this with Brandon Johnson, if he wins and he pulls a Lori Lightfoot, because I voted for Lori Lightfoot, we will be back here crucifying him just as mercilessly because we're tired of being bamboozled by candidates. In Vallas's case, though, his history, his past is prologue. We know what he's going to be about already. So I'd rather take a chance with Johnson. Okay, I'd rather take the chance with Johnson, knowing he's aligned with teachers, he's aligned with working people, he's aligned with average Chicagoans, and this guy the super PACs are just pouring money into his campaign to basically blanket the city now with all of these flyers and all the media we're going to get that are sadly going to convince too many voters that this is the guy I should vote for, when they don't really have a look into what he's all about and who the interests are that he's going to serve.
Yeah, the campaign signs all over the streets. It's ridiculous.
Okay, Jerry, it's too late after you pivot. The damages are just fuck off. All right, fuck off already. You understand what I'm talking about? You know, you want to play contrarian and act like, it's too late. No, it's never too late to pivot. Okay, it's never too late to pivot and admit when you're wrong. You decide to stay the course and drive off a fucking cliff is what you do.
Yeah, that seems to be a pattern with people who are stuck inside the duopoly. If you're constantly thinking along the lines of red versus blue, you're not going to be able to break out and understand it. It's not about team sports. It's about what are they going to do. It's about policy. And if they have a history and you can track it to see what they've done in the past, it helps educate you into what they might be able to do with their campaign promises.
And this is what supporters of Vallas always pivot to. Johnson is aligned with a corrupted CTU that have ruined children's education and future. How? How has CTU ruined children's education? How have they done that, Constitutional Conservative? Explain to me. You don't even have kids in the Chicago public education system. But you always pivot to that. Everybody who supports Vallas always pivots to this corrupt CTU that's ruined kids' education. How?
Yeah,
with underfunded teachers who have to buy their own supplies for their classrooms because they can't get it from CPS. If you want to talk about corruption, Constitutional Conservative, you've got the acronyms wrong. It's CPS you're thinking of, not CTU.
Yeah, that's essentially it. You could talk about like how the teachers union used their leverage during the lockdowns and all of that stuff. But there was a lot of people making bad decisions back then. This is what, 4 years ago now, right?
Can't believe that much.
Can't believe it's been 4 years on this, and we still have to tiptoe around what we can talk about on this platform.
And this is what we're talking about here. Varund DB mentioned CTU goes toe-to-toe with CPS leadership on the regular. That's because it's CPS that's not serving the public schools. The teachers union is there to support the teachers who are taking care of the kids. It's CPS that is responsible for the decisions and the funding or the underfunding that CTU regularly has to wrestle with.
Yeah, I don't know where he's getting the data that says that kids can't read. But I mean, if kids are struggling, that's a failure to properly support the public school system. That's not the teacher's fault.
Yeah. And it's interesting. It blows my mind, literally blows my mind how much teachers are vilified while they want all the privatization interests that are going to come up and carve up the city as worse probably than Rob and Lori, given this guy's history with privatization. That's okay. Why? Because he's a white guy. And it is. You know what? Everybody, he's the great white hope. There was an article, I forgot, I think it was WBEZ that I tried to listen to, that really framed this as this is a tale of two cities. It's a tale of the haves and the have-nots. Palos Paul representing the haves and Johnson hopefully representing the have-nots. I couldn't listen to the WBEZ or I couldn't read the whole thing because it was behind a paywall.
Lou's getting into the voucher thing.
The vouchers now. We covered that last week. I'm pretty sure
I had a nice big rant about that on Tuesday in previous shows. So we're not getting into that again, except to say
really quickly
that by saying that parents don't have choice because they can't opt out of a public school system that isn't properly supported, and they can't take that's a false choice. Okay,
and also
people can always choose to go and pay for private schooling, but if they want to be in a public community or city-run school system, they should supporting the system and making it equitable for everyone, so they don't have to worry about which public school their kid is attending, because they will all have the proper support that they need.
And I would say to anybody,
is a cop-out.
And I would say to anybody also, Ed, that continues down this path, what makes you think your kids are better than somebody else's kids? Shouldn't all your children get the same standard of education, that you don't need vouchers?
Yeah.
Talk to CPS. Fix the goddamn system.
Yeah. Do you want only your kids to be the smartest and everyone else to be a total dumbass? Is that a world you want to live in?
Oh, now this was an argument that was brought up when I was visiting my home last week. $29,000 per child in CPS, higher than Wilmette per student. That's because there are more students in the Chicago school system, Vlaka. And for anybody who doesn't know what Vlaka means, it's Greek. Go look it up. There are more students in the Chicago public school system that need service than the pittance of students that are in Wilmette. Okay,
I don't know Vlaka.
You don't need as much money for Wilmette. Go ahead.
I don't know Vlaka, but I know vaca, which is Spanish for cow.
No, it's not what it is.
Okay.
Vlaka is essentially Greek for.
Okay. Hey, are we allowed to call people a jerk off in Greek on this show, Jerry?
I'm saying we are. But we love our constitutional conservative. I know he's got a good heart. He's just so politically brainwashed by the right. I don't know how to deprogram him.
It's okay. I mean, maybe we could do the Clockwork Orange thing, where we tie him up to a chair and pin his eyes open and make him watch every episode of Chicago Corner.
Deprogram a lot of people that way. Where did we leave off in this video? Is he continuing on his?
We're about. I can hit play and see where we are at.
Initiative to the next level, so I can touch the point that I was only focusing on public safety. But what you need to do in all of our communities is you need to restore community-based social services. You need to open our campuses through the dinner hour school campuses on the weekends, over the summer and holidays, so the young people can be engaged in work-study opportunities. You need to have reentry programs for returning citizens, and you need to restore the concept of police integrity, or beat integrity, I should say. There are are 1,700 fewer officers than there were in 2019. And on any given day,
What difference does that make? Catanzaro says they're all going to quit if you don't get in.
That's right. And why is that? Because he's going to have, because because the white leaning fraternal order police is not getting their candidate in that they know is going to get rid of the consent decree. So there's less accountability for cops, health support for cops, less accountability for what ends up happening because they can't manage their mental health issues.
half the high priority 911 calls are not responded to because there simply is not a police car available to respond. So instead of
okay, sure, right. Or
That's
they're
bullshit.
just choosing.
We saw how many
they're
police
picking
cars.
and choosing. Yeah.
We saw how many police cars showed up to that video that Erica Nat shared with us a week or two ago. Remember?
Yeah.
First they followed her, then there were plenty of police cars at that response.
Yeah, they're picking and choosing what they respond to, and they're choosing. They're like, oh wait, that's in this area of the city. We don't need to respond to that. Yeah, that's not cool, man.
The
Don't do
abandoned
that.
South and West sides.
instead of getting a response in minutes, you get a response in hours.
Mr. Vallis, I have to follow up that question and ask you, given the tenuous relationship at best between these communities and the police, and the fact that John Catanzaro is the head of the fleet of the Federation of Police, how do you see that working as you move more police into these areas?
Well, my approach is to deal with the rank and file, and I've negotiated something like 26 collective bargaining agreements with every union in the city, including 4 teacher contracts with 6 actually, and with 4.
Yeah, I kind of wish we had a teacher to come on to talk about how he negotiated those contracts. Maybe someday we'll be able to get somebody want to come on and talk to us about that.
There are endless articles, though, from teachers, not only in Chicago. Well, I wasn't thinking about Chicago, but in the other states and cities that he served, basically destroying the school systems there to create more charters and privatize those systems. It's easy to find. Let's go to the next video, though.
Okay.
Now, for everybody who still keeps talking about Johnson wants to let anarchy reign and defund the police, which means just completely disbanding the police department. Let's let him lay it out for us.
Mr. Johnson, this question is for you. On multiple occasions, you've spoken on the topic of defunding police. In 2020, you said, quote, defunding this failed system of incarceration and policing was not just admirable, but necessary, end quote. During a town hall called Police Free Future, you commended defund organizers for, quote, an agenda that actually can transform people's lives and said, quote, removing ourselves away from state-sponsored policing. That is commendable. As far as redirecting funds, if we look at your record, you introduced a resolution and passed it with the support of others to redirect money from the sheriff's office to other areas. So first, this is a multi-part question. The first is just a yes or no. Do you acknowledge making those recorded and documented statements? Yes or no?
I'm not going to defund the police.
If you could answer the question, though.
Yeah.
Do you acknowledge making the statements that I just read by quote, yes or no?
What I've acknowledged is the fact that there are people who are incredibly frustrated.
Mr. Johnson,
when
if I could get you back to the question.
Yeah, of course.
I don't like how he's dodging this. I wish. I mean,
he
if-
didn't do
if he
himself
said
any favors.
it,
He should have said yes.
If he said it, he should have just said yes and then followed through with,
yes.
You know, I've adapted my position on this, and
I agree.
gone forward.
And this is one of those moments where I thought that he really fumbled because just acknowledge it, fess up, and say yeah. And can I qualify now what I meant? Because you can't just say yes or no without understanding context.
And from my perspective, what he's doing here is he's trying to thread the needle between what the general public thinks defund is and what people who actually read the policy know it is. And so for him to just come out and say, yeah, I support it, but then coming out later and saying I'm not going to defund the police. The reason why he says that is because everyone on the to the right of him has made that a scary thing, a scary proposition that you would somehow transition public safety to where police are not the center of its universe anymore. Sorry, I don't see a problem with us transitioning toward a day where police are like an additional thing. They're a bonus package on the stream, on the public safety stream, or whatever you call it. We shouldn't have to have we shouldn't have to have a city which is constantly dealing with crime or worrying about police response to it.
And Mad Matt makes a very good point, or we can claim he was taken out of context and he needs to clarify. But let's continue with it. So he does eventually get to clarifying, but he didn't do himself any favors with that reporter by dodging it and not just saying, no. And let's get to the next question and allow me to clarify it.
Solely yes or no. Do you acknowledge making those statements?
Look, you've
Yes
already
or no?
you've already
Dude,
quoted
answer
what I'm
the
saying
question.
is, though,
So you
is that it
acknowledge making
provides
those
some
statements?
Of course, I'm acknowledging it, but I want to
So
make sure
wanna
that we
give you
have
the opportunity
context
to
to
answer
that.
the question, but I just want to move on to the next part of it. So acknowledging that you made those statements over a course of not just months, but years, commending them, there was a period of time where you wanted to redirect money away from Chicago police to the tune of $150 million. Just within the last 24 hours, though, it seems that there was an about face, and now you're saying you're not going to take a penny away. How do you reconcile those two differing positions?
They're not different positions. I never said we're going to take money from the police.
The $150 million was not.
You know how the way I perceive this? He was radically making a statement. The police are overfunded. The police regularly abuse their authority. And he was standing with activists during a time when we saw what happened with George Floyd. And I think he was absolutely right to say it. That doesn't mean anarchy in the streets now, as some people in our chat are claiming. There was an emotional moment where we saw out of control cops getting away without any accountability, which is what's led to the consent decrees here in Chicago. You know, how quickly people forget John Burge and the torture squad in CPD that would regularly force confessions out of innocent people so they can keep their numbers up. Regularly tortured people. That's what defund comes from. And if you don't understand that, you don't live on the South and the West Side, and you're not a black person. And that's not about racism, and that's not a race card. That is fact, and that is reality. People who can't walk in the shoes of people who live in other neighborhoods that they would never want to like go down and visit, let alone live in, do not understand. Black Lives Matter is about the fact that for so long, Black lives have never mattered. And for anybody with a thin white skin to act like, well, I'm so offended, my life matters too, you don't get it because you've never had to live in black skin, period. And that's not about being racist. That's about our society. That's about the systematic discrimination in our society. And I've said many times, you know, I visited a friend of mine in Los Angeles, went to high school together, and we were talking about all the forward, thinking when we were in high school, civil rights was behind us. We saw a brighter future. Things were going to change. Things were going to get better. No, they've gone totally back. I personally cannot believe that we're still talking about race in this country. We're talking about race and prejudice and discrimination because it hasn't gone away as it should have when civil rights were passed. And you would have thought that we would have been a more enlightened society to understand everybody needs to be treated equally and treat each other equally. And we're still fighting it. This is the tale of two cities in Chicago. That's what this is all about. People need to pull their heads out of their asses and understand that defund the police had to do with the fact that police were overfunded without any accountability, period. Now, I've said a couple times I thought defund was a bad branding. It really meant reallocate resources. But in the emotion of the moment of seeing police literally execute people on the streets by putting their knees on their throats and choking them out, it was an emotional response to that I don't think a lot of white people could even imagine.
Well,
right?
That and it's a double standard too, because they wouldn't bat an eye if someone said defund schools.
Right. Yeah.
So I mean, the reality is it's talking about priorities. What are your priorities for this city and all its resources? Yep. Are you just going to keep funneling money into a reactionary force that often is not checked on its abuse of authority? Or are you going to take those funds and put them into community services that will actually help everybody and reduce crime.
And get at the root, attack the root causes of crime that I'm not even going to go off into because we've talked about it ad nauseum every goddamn broadcast till we're blue in the face. Okay, if spending more money on the police was going to increase safety, we'd be the safest city in the country, the safest city in the world. We're not, because the money that's going to the police is not going into the neighborhoods. It's not going into helping youth. It's not going into all of these root causes of crime that create desperate people who don't have the choices people in other better neighborhoods do have. Although some people in the better neighborhoods also resort to crime as well. But we're talking about the disparity, neighborhood to neighborhood.
Yeah. And understand, we're not excusing crime when we say these things. Don't commit crimes, but don't think that you're going to stop crime by overinflating a police force budget.
And not vetting and choosing your police force candidates better, or providing the mental health support they need once they are in the field dealing with the tragedies and the craziness that none of us could imagine in some of these communities as it relates to crime. You know, we've been very critical of the police in the past because of the horrible stuff that we see, but I do acknowledge that they've got a rough job. And clearly when we've discovered how little mental health support there is for the Chicago police, I don't know, other departments, but here in Chicago, the amount of mental health professionals that are assigned to CPD, it's laughable. How can you imagine that any of these people, any of these people in the police force can manage their lives and their stress better when they're not adequately served. They're served even less adequately as people in neighborhoods where we don't have mental health clinics that have shut down. What did Warren share? I'm sorry.
Yeah, Warren's. Let me put it back up. He says crime is tied to a shitty economy, which is tied to a failed system. Change the system, fix the economy, and crime decreases. And Lou agrees with that. So yeah, we found something to agree with here. Seriously, if people are making decent money, so where they can properly support themselves, if you have a decent system, you don't rig the economy for the handful of dudes at the top, crime's going to go down.
Yeah, simple as that. We haven't seen that demonstrated because we have not reallocated the resources to make that happen. All we've done is shovel more money to the police department for decades, generations. You know, just as a test, why don't we try something different? Let's not overfund the police. Let's start taking some of that money and putting it into the communities, as we've talked about, as you know, treatment, not trauma, as Brandon Johnson has proposed, as a lot of activists, as a lot of organizers have proposed, and just let's see if it works for a little bit of time. Let's see if that works. Let's see if we can redirect the resources. But when you've got clowns like Cotton Zara on Fraternal Order of Police, who sees law enforcement as simply a reactionary service, you know, why don't we work with the communities and figure out how we can make it easier for our cops on the streets by figuring out how to lessen crime. Look, I sometimes wonder why we're even here talking about this stuff. I'm just so overwhelmed and just exhausted by it every time we talk about it.
But I think it's valuable for us to bring it up once in a while, because not everybody has seen every one of our live streams. And if you're just joining us, welcome. We talk about stuff like this all the time. And it's mostly because we want a better city.
Kathy makes a good point. Police are marred with the superhuman stigma who do not need mental health support. Yeah, that's the problem. It's like mental health should not be a stigma. Police, you don't have to be Superman or Batman or the Punisher or think that you don't need mental health support. Everybody needs mental health support in every job, especially this one. Yeah, it shouldn't be. If it wasn't treated as a stigma, more people would probably be better equipped to manage and
Well, a lot of people
and
see these things as signs of weakness, right? People don't.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm shuffling papers over here. Yeah, people just don't. You have to understand that if you have the ability to seek mental health services, you're not feeling right about things, go ahead and seek the help if you can. I know not everybody has easy access to those things, but hopefully the next mayor will reopen the mental health clinics. We'll be able to at least have some of those resources available for people who might not have been able to get them.
Yeah. Let's continue with his explanation here.
Was not redirecting the funds away from the police?
Directing it towards implementing the consent decree, directing those dollars to make sure that we hire and train and promote 200 more detectives, to make sure that we are implementing the laws that are on the books, like our red flag laws. I've never said I was going to cut the police budget. Now the press has said it because, look, I get the agenda of the Republican Party, the same Republican Party that said that President Biden is going to defund the police, which was a lie. The same Republican Party that said Governor J.B. Pritzker is going to defund the police, which is a lie, which is the same Republican Party that is supporting my opponent that's saying that I'm going to defund the police. I'm not going to defund the police. What I've said repeatedly is that the $150 million should be appropriated towards making sure that we are doing smart policing, which includes training and promoting and hiring 200 more detectives, implementing the consent decree, making sure that we are providing mental health services for police officers. That is a part of the budget.
To follow up on that, you speak of these 200 detectives. On the record here, do you plan to do any additional hiring apart from promoting the detectives who are already within the ranks?
Individuals who wish to be police officers, of course we want to hire. But let's just also be clear that this notion that 1,600 police officers are going to fly out of the air immediately overnight is just false.
But are you committing then to hiring in addition to promoting?
The questions and the framing in this are clearly pro-cop, pro-corporate, afraid of everybody and everything. So please, for the love of God, hire more cops.
Yeah. Because they just don't get it. Hire more cops. There's not a cop is not going to be stationed outside of everybody's door to make sure when they walk out in the street they're not mugged. The fear, the reactionary fear mentality across the city. But look, this has been basically hammered into people's heads, Ed.
Yeah,
by all the media outlets.
I know it's all. I have to talk my parents down from the ledge when they're worried about me and living in the city because of all the crime that they hear about. And it's like I finally got a chance to explain at length to my mother about what we talk about here, about the situation and what really the causes of crime are and everything else. And she finally gets it. I'm like, okay, thank God. I got through to one person. Maybe I got through to a couple of you out there.
Of course. But what I'm saying is, though.
What, Jerry?
Well, speaking of parents and texts, I got a text message from my mom the other night. This is why I was pulling up my phone here. She shared a link: robbery at gunpoint at Walgreens on Howard and Western. Okay, appreciate mom's worried about me. Please be careful. Crime is in your neighborhood. I wrote that crime is everywhere, Mom. Closer to your house. Do not take it lightly, especially at night. Carrie Mace.
Is crime in the room with you right now?
My God. All right.
Though I don't want to give people the false impression, like my opponent, that 1,600 police officers are going to show up. It takes 2 years to become a police officer. Exactly. Rufus just indicated, I live in Austin. We can't afford to wait 2 years for police officers to show up. That's why we have to make sure that we are moving with expediency to train and promote 200 more detectives, moving with expediency to make sure that we are implementing the consent decree, which is going to conservatively cost me $50 million of the $150 million that you're speaking of. We have to make sure that we are providing mental health services and youth employment. I have one additional
follow-up if you would like to answer. You also speak of, in this overarching plan, that you want to hire double the amount of youth into jobs because you say it can also prevent violence. What companies have you specifically spoken to and already have on board to do this, and how do you plan to pay for it? And how do you plan to convince these young
How
people?
are we going to pay for it?
to
How are we
take
going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? To quote Kyle Kalinske,
always
how are we going to
do
pay for it? How are we going to pay for it? How are we going to pay for it?
I mean, we do understand that federal budgets and state and city budgets are different, right? On the federal level, they never have to ask that question, even though they continue to ask it. On state and local, it has to do with the fact that state and local budgets actually are funded by people's taxes. And so it's a legitimate question, but it's asked in bad faith here, because you very much know that Chicago ain't broke. They can do this.
Jobs.
Well, first of all, we don't have to convince young people. They want work. They want to be loved. I've been a teacher. I've looked into the eyes of young people who desire people to actually invest in them. Here's the first thing. As the mayor of the city of Chicago, I have jurisdiction over sister agencies, CPS, CTA, streets and sanitation, parks and recreation. Whosoever will, let them come. And they're ready. And that includes working with our business community and our small business communities. Absolutely. It is documented that major corporations have tried to work with the outgoing administration to do just what I'm proposing. The difference is I'm prepared to bring everybody to the table. And because it is a matter of life and death for the city of Chicago. The data has proven over and over again that violence prevention is directly tied to our investment in young people. Youth employment, doubling the amount of young people that we hire, not just for the summer, but year round, is a direct correlation to reducing violence. And that's what I'm going to do as mayor of the city of Chicago.
Mr. Val.
All right, let's go to the next clip, which is a pet peeve of mine. But Varun DB shares, that's a twofer. Who are your corporate buddies pushing for child labor? How are you going to pay for it? That's really what she's asking.
And I think there's some states that are like trying to legalize different types of child labor. Because,
Arkansas. Did you see this? So
it's like, I understand, if you're like a family out on the farm, if you're like a family out on the farm and you got a family farm and you want your teenage kid to help out and you want to pay them, I understand that perspective, but what they really want to do is they want to legalize child labor everywhere, because adults are starting to ask for the actual value of their labor when they are requesting their wage amounts, or and the owners of these businesses don't like that.
They don't want to pay a living wage either. So it's either going to be child labor, or it's going to be all those pesky illegal immigrants that they can pay nothing to, because they don't want to pay Americans a fair living wage.
And they can't wait for robots to come and take all of our jobs. But look down the road. Don't you all understand that robots are going to take a majority of the jobs, and then what? Are you gonna speak up then? You're not speaking up now about people getting any kind of living income that may not be tied to a job. You have a problem with that now with basic income, but down the road you're not going to when robot takes your job. So just think about it.
By the way, it's Sarah Huckabee Sanders, Trump's former press secretary, who's now governor of Arkansas, who has repealed the child labor laws there. That was in the news last week.
Awesome.
Under my administration, we will do
next
that.
question.
Are we getting into the next question here? Okay.
We're going to the next one.
Okay, that's the CP. Okay.
And is also to you, Mr.
Now,
Johnson.
I was very troubled at how
students
Johnson kind of fumbled on a response to this. I'm like, it seemed like he was completely taken off guard that this question was being given to him. So I was very, very concerned with how he floundered over it. But I was even more, I was even more shocked when they passed the question to Paul Vallis and he responded. Well, we'll share why I was shocked at Vallis's response and the lack of a follow-up that I'm going to bring up here.
Roman school. We
Thank
have
you,
to
Mr.
end that
Jones.
stratified system to make sure that education
I
is a
backed it up
guaranteed
a few
right.
seconds.
Under my
Thank
administration,
you.
we will
This
do
you,
that.
next
Mr. Johnson.
question is also to you, Mr. Johnson. We've reported on students being sexually assaulted by other students at Chicago public schools, allegations of administrators and teachers ignoring claims of abuse or even shaming the victims. Just last year, there were at least 3 cases within CPS where CPS agreed to settlements amounting to nearly $3 million. Separately, an inspector general report showed more than 400 sexual complaints against CPS employees from students in 2022. What are you going to do specifically to stop this abuse? of our
CPS
children in
employees,
school?
not CTU members. CPS employees, the ones who don't fund the schools properly. CPS, Chicago Public Schools.
Yeah, well, and of course, when or whoever becomes mayor basically becomes in charge of the CPS, not the CTU. So in this case, if Brandon becomes mayor, he ends up sort of on the other side of the thing, except they might actually work together since he was a teacher. With Vallis, it will definitely be adversarial, which will just continue what we've already seen over the last 2 mayoral runs. So,
Well, look, as someone who has been a public school teacher and someone who sends their children to the Chicago public schools, it's quite unconscionable to know that trust has been broken down and violated. And that's why I've made it very clear that the type of investments that we have to make in our public school system has to make sure that there are supportive measures in place to make sure that we're protecting children. And that's everything from social workers, counselors, therapists.
Pause it.
Schools should be a safe space.
That doesn't get to the root problem of making sure it doesn't happen and basically having a zero tolerance policy in the schools to make sure to signal any employees or teachers or whoever or students that this is not to be accepted.
All right, I understand that. I think his general response, though, I don't think he really fumbled too much in this answer. I mean,
He's not finished yet. He's not finished yet. This is just the first part of it.
All right.
Yes.
Well, and again, he said this is a thing where he's going to have to work with the communities to come up with the plans for a lot of this stuff. So maybe
the plan would be investigating, charging, and incarcerating and putting people in jail, so people in school would realize we can't get away with preying upon kids.
Yeah,
which is going to go with the Vallis follow up. But continue.
Okay.
For children and their families, and again, someone who sends their children to be supported by a system that has failed them. I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure that we're fully invested in our neighborhood schools and our schools to make sure that there are protective measures in place so that doesn't happen.
So you're saying you would increase the amount of counselors and
adults.
Why is she telling him that's what
A
he's
lot of
saying?
times what
He didn't say that. He's putting words in his mouth now. But go ahead.
Yeah,
back it
that's
up just a little
leading.
bit. Sorry.
Yeah,
that's
that's a no-no if you're.
And he goes with it too. I was shocked to see that.
Okay.
What happens is, unfortunately, trust is broken, and this happens in all of our systems, right? It's not just confined to schools.
do you have any more specifics apart from the counselors in terms of accountability for teachers?
Well, I mean, listen, if they
administrators?
break the law and they sexually assault someone, they get to have a day in court, and if they're found guilty, they should have full punishment. What I'm saying is that we have broken systems all over the city of Chicago. And whether it happens in a school or whether it happens in a faith community, we have to make sure that we're holding people accountable.
Thank you,
But
Mr.
we also have to make
Johnson.
sure that we're providing support services in place so that there's an opportunity.
Okay, I'm not
making sure the
I
teachers
understand
realize
he could have been a little more specific, but I'm not hating his answer.
Okay, but here's the thing, Ed. Here's my problem with it. And she did bring up the point that a lot of these we've reported on these stories about teachers grooming kids.
Yeah.
Okay. He's a teachers union guy. If I were him, I would have had no mercy on the teachers, whether they're supporting me or not. Okay. It's unacceptable. So this is a situation that troubles me, and that And Vallis is no better because Vallis ran CPS, and we know that he basically quashed an investigation regarding sexual abuse allegations when he was CEO of CPS. Okay, so what troubles me most of all is that I think that Brandon could have gained some points here by not being harsh and saying, yeah, teachers, employees, students, whatever. They all get their day in court, but it's not going to be accepted. It's not going to be tolerated. And that to me is like that you really could have shown that, you're in tune, you're listening to, you're making a stand to show those who think that you're controlled by CTU, that if you're not going to be hard on CTU, you will be in a case like that.
I can see that. So
that's kind of where I'm going with it.
That he had an opportunity here to be a little more forceful in his response.
Well, especially look,
I can see that.
These sexual abuse crimes are happening in schools, and it's happening between students, and it's happening with teachers. So why wouldn't you? Everybody knows everybody gets their day in court, but you have to, whether it's bullying or sexual abuse, there's got to be a zero tolerance policy, and people have got to know that. You got to stop pussyfooting around it and being like, oh, well, I don't want to say this because I don't want to offend teachers, because unfortunately, Ed, there have been a lot of teachers involved in these scandals, in these cases. So, yeah, I think he needs to be a little bit more forceful and show that he's going to hold everybody accountable, because that would diffuse those who claim he's playing favorites with CTU. That's my point.
Opportunity for recovery as well.
Mr. Vallis, I have the same question for you. With specificity, what would you do to stop this problem and better protect our children?
Well, I think we're in agreement. They've actually put a system in place, and the only thing that seems to be lacking right now is enforcement, because they clearly have created a process to identify cases where in the past the cases were not identified. And, they've empowered the Inspector General to do that work and to issue the reports. So the question is now, what's the next step? What's the next step? What process do you do to take those investigations to their full point of closure? And where the district seems to be falling down is, in effect, not following through on those investigations. So the question here is one of enforcement. It's not identification. I think they've created
enforcement. Sure, it is, Paul. This came up in the last election.
That's a fault, and really quick, that's a fault of CPS, not CTU.
Well, this was an issue last election, Ed, that I'm surprised that she didn't do. When he's talking about investigation and following through and stuff, he didn't do that. He's proven that he's not willing to do that. And of course, my browser screen is not loading here. Hold on, so I can read from the article. I know you guys can see it on that end. All right, I'm just going to have to read from this over here. Chicago mayoral candidate Paul Vallis. This is from 2018. Chicago mayoral candidate Paul Vallis has come under fire for the failure of his administration to launch an investigation into how a pedophile became a trusted mentor at a West Side school after sex abuse crimes committed by the school employee and volunteer came to light 18 years ago while Vallis was the city's top schools official. Okay, so now my screen opens up. I can read it in this end. Fellow mayoral candidates Lori Lightfoot and Gary McCarthy criticized Vallis on Thursday for not opening an investigation into abuse of students at by Marvin Lovett, who's been accused in lawsuits of sexually abusing at least 19 boys while he was a volunteer and employee. While he was a volunteer and employee at Johnson Elementary School in North Lawndale. Lovett was shot to death in April 2000 by a teenage student he abused for 5 years, and his acts represent the largest known case of sexual abuse involving a Chicago Public Schools worker, volunteer, or vendor in recent decades. In the latest installment of its betrayal investigation into sex abuse cases at CPS, the Chicago Tribune on Wednesday detailed a long-buried case manager's 58-page report in the CPS Inspector General's office that laid out the accounts of 4 CPS employees who told investigators they had raised concerns about Lovett's interactions with boys to Johnson's principal at the time, Maddie Tyson. Tyson told the Tribune she did not know about the abuse. The 2002 investigative report, however, concluded Tyson knew or should have known that Lovett was either an active pedophile or posed a risk to the students at Johnson School. CPS's Inspector General at the time rejected the report's conclusions and closed the investigation as unsubstantiated, and the findings long had been hidden from public view as a result. In its investigation, the Tribune reported that Vallis was the CPS CEO when Lovett's crime first came to light in April of 2000. The Tribune reviewed fax records that showed a concerned Johnson parent reached out to Vallis and his top aides on behalf of the school community to raise concerns about Lovett's abuse of children, but CPS case tracking records showed Vallis's administration never launched an investigation. A probe later was launched after Vallis resigned his CPS post in June of 2001. Vallis initially declined an interview in response to the Tribune investigation, and his campaign released a statement that said the Lovett case was, quote, not one that Mr. Vallis or any one of a number of former school officials to whom we reached out recalls, other than vaguely as something that was fleetingly reported on the news. Vallis's campaign defended the lack of an investigation by saying it was a matter for police and child welfare authorities. This asshole here, guys, okay? You heard his response in the debate. Well, the proper things are, there are proper channels. Well, somebody pursued the proper channels when he was CEO of CPS, and they ignored it. Under his watch, this guy who doesn't know who he's fundraising for, that he disavows later after taking donations or appearing with the types of characters that we were talking about earlier in the broadcast. That's who Paul Vallis is. He will say anything and nothing, much like I'm borrowing that phrase I used for Kamala Harris. It's the truth, though. You just heard his response in the debate, how he'll handle it. He didn't handle it before. That's who he is. And isn't it astounding that the reporters there didn't bring this up again? Yeah. They certainly brought it up in 2018 when he was running last time. Why isn't that an issue now when it comes to sexual abuse crimes in schools?
Yeah, interesting that that a station, who was it? Was this a CBS 2?
Yep.
Who owns CBS? I don't remember. But I wonder how much money that company gave to Vallis's campaign.
This is my big, you know what? It shouldn't be a one-issue campaign, but really this is my biggest issue with Paul Vallis, that he fumbled so badly while he was CEO of Chicago Public Schools and did not do what was necessary to protect vulnerable students in an investigation. And we've reported since then, or shared reports that other people have done regarding all these camps that are just, it can't, it's intolerable. So I lost my show notes. Let me pull up a window over here.
Okay.
Extra Bulla. Go ahead, Extra Bulla.
Warren saying, doesn't Viacom still own CBS? Viacom and Warner Brothers and CBS are all owned by Paramount Global, who also owns NBC Universal, Comedy Central, Nickelodeon, a bunch of other stuff. So yeah, it's a big company. Probably wants Vallis to win.
It has its tentacles across everything. Yeah, there's the corporate interest. Oh man, my Google. Okay, here. Wait for my Google Docs to open up here so I can get back to our show notes. Are you able to pull up the next story we were going to talk about?
The Sun Times one?
Yeah, whatever's after those video clips.
Yeah, I can. Are we done with the videos?
Yeah, that was the last of them.
Okay. All righty then.
Okay, speaking of PACs and financial interests, so guess who decided to donate to Paul Vallis's campaign? Betsy DeVos. Okay, this woman who bought her position as Secretary of Education, I believe it was, under the Trump administration.
Yeah, nine yachts left to go, Jerry.
Yeah, in overdrive, defunding public education in favor of charter schools. Now, Vallis backed by PAC founded by former Trump Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. The political committee's contribution is a drop in the bucket of dollars into the race in its final days, but it's an indication that school privatization champions see an opportunity with Vallis's candidacy, because of course they do.
Mhm.
This comes to us from Chicago Sun-Times. Nadar Issa, I hope I'm pronouncing that name correctly. I'm so sorry. An education lobbying and advocacy group founded by former Trump Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, let's just keep the picture on him,
Okay.
and funded by Republican donors, is backing Paul Vallis's campaign for mayor. The Illinois Federation for Children PAC is an affiliate of the American Federation for Children, a conservative 501c4 group that calls itself the nation's leading school choice organization. Every parent and every student should have a choice to just get a good education. They shouldn't have to shop around for it. Okay? The PAC reported sending $59,385 late last week to Virginia-based GOP political consulting firm Go Big Media and designated the funds for digital media work in support of Vallis's campaign, according to campaign finance records. The contribution is a drop in the bucket of dollars pouring into the race in its final days ahead of Tuesday's runoff election. And the PAC's backing of Vallis isn't a big surprise, given that his name is synonymous with the school choice movement, and his campaign has repeatedly promoted privately managed but publicly funded charter schools and private school vouchers. But the funding is a further indication that school privatization champions, including big money Republican donors, see an opportunity to re-enter Chicago's educational landscape if Vallis wins after the movement plateaued in the city over the last decade. Vallis has already received financial backing from charter school interests. A Vallis spokesman said that his campaign would strongly reject any endorsements from Betsy DeVos, but he'll gladly take the check. And what do you think Betsy DeVos and this PAC is expecting for their check, ladies and gentlemen, if he wins? Thank you. Thank you for your service. Please drive through. That's the end of it. No. He's a charter school champion. He's going to make education worse, because with the vouchers, regular public education is going to be ignored more. I mean, the fact that this is about a guy who is all about privatizing schools and putting in charter schools, running against a candidate that represents a teachers union that needs help to be able to give kids an equal education across the board. How could it be more starkly contrasted what this is about? He's running for mayor to basically run against the Chicago Teachers Union so that people can make money off of privatization and charter schools in Chicago, period, along with all the other privatized interests that are going to benefit from him winning this election. Now, his spokesman says, our campaign has not been in contact with this organization. We've certainly not sought its support.
Right.
The spokesman said in a statement, campaigns cannot coordinate activities with independent expenditure committees by law, and we have no control over this group's actions. I'm shocked to find gambling here, Ed.
And that quote is a lie, by the way. It's a flat out lie.
DeVos, who has not endorsed Vallis, founded the American Federation for Children and chaired it until Trump nominated her. She bought that nomination, okay? She made a lot of donations to Trump's campaign, but he nominated her as his education secretary in late 2016. She hasn't led the group since, but she continued speaking at its events after her departure, and there were lingering questions about her coordination with it. She and her husband continue to be among the group's biggest funders. The American Federation for Children created its Illinois Federation for Children PAC as an independent expenditure committee in March of 2022 to support and oppose candidates for statewide office, all with the mission of advancing school choice. Because kids in South and West Side neighborhoods, they don't get the choice that students in other neighborhoods get, right?
It's a false choice.
Of course it is.
It's not.
It's leaving kids behind.
I just explained this about 5 minutes ago, and apparently Lou wasn't paying attention. It's not school choice to give people vouchers or to privatize your school system. All they're doing is they're taking public dollars and they're funneling over to private institutions.
Get this. I pay fucking property taxes that fund these schools even though I have no children. So I deserve to say how my taxes are allocated. End of conversation. You don't have the kids in the system? No, you don't. And if you don't like the way your property taxes are allocated, move. Move to a suburb where there are better schools.
Or run for city council and change the.
Jesus Christ!
Yeah.
You want children punished because of the property taxes you pay, while you're complaining about the fact that kids aren't educated.
Taxes paying for blah 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 blah. Dude, that's being part of Chicago citizen. I mean, you can have your opinion on what you don't want your taxes paying for, but it's futile to continue saying that about when you're taxed for a city that you're not contributing in the decisions that are being made.
And here's the wisdom of Virund DB. Haha, I pay property taxes too. Have 0 kids, but I want them to get public resources so they don't grow up with less opportunity now, so they need to rob me and you later. See, this is the long-term thinking that a lot of people in the moment don't pay any attention to, because you know what, Ed? They're going to be dead and gone later while they're belly aching right now.
Well, if you're not going to pay your city taxes there, Lou, then I guess you can't run for mayor.
All right. The American Federation for Children created its Illinois Federation for Children PAC as an independent expenditure committee in March of 2022 to support and oppose candidates for statewide office, all with the mission of advancing school choice. The political committee spent over $700,000 toward those efforts last year on Republican candidates for the Illinois legislature. The PAC lists a Washington, D.C. address. Quote, every single one of Illinois students deserves the same opportunities to seek the education that is best for them, not the one that's best for school district bureaucracies or teachers union. The Illinois Federation for Children's PAC website says. Great.
Wow.
What does that mean? That means make the quality of education the same in Chicago as it is up in Wilmette or
They don't want that.
or Kenilworth. Of course they don't, because you don't find kids of color in Wilmette or Winnetka or Kenilworth. Okay. This is elitist bullshit. It's not, though, Ed. There aren't a lot of people of color in those neighborhoods and communities. I know. I grew up in them.
Okay.
I grew up in Wilmette, and I know people up. It's. Trust me on this.
I'm just saying, then some dude in the chat raises his hand and says, "Dude, I'm black and I live in Wilmette." That's all.
Great.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
Okay.
Did someone in the chat say that?
No.
Okay. There you go.
But I hope someday. I'm hoping someday.
Ed, when I was in a graduating class at New Trier High School back in 1984, a graduating class of about 3,000 students at New Trier High School, I recall 3 black students, honestly, that I recall. Okay, so no, and it really hasn't changed in the North Side.
So there's 3.
Yes.
Hey Jerry, before we get too far into this, can I put up the tweet that I saw earlier regarding that quote that Vallis made about not having contact with Betsy DeVos?
Sure.
Yeah. Let me show you this. Here, this is from Illinois Families for Public Schools on Twitter. Paul Vallis said yesterday, quote, "I've never had any conversations or contact with Betsy DeVos." Here he is on host committee in fall 2021 with Betsy DeVos.
Wow.
Along with Arnie Duncan and lots of Vallis funders at an event for the Archdiocese.
Thank you, Joy. Thank you. Joy has made my point. Thank you.
This is and he's retweeting from Mike Klonsky. It says, who says, "My invite must have got lost in the mail." Duncan, DeVos, and Vallis all slated to attend today's announcement. Jim Perry, co-founder of Madison Dearborn Partners private equity firm and a major donor to Catholic schools.
Constitutional
Catholic
conservative. Let's see.
Schools.
Constitutional conservative. Any commentary on this lie? He's never had any contact with Betsy DeVos. Never had any contact with her.
Just thought that was worth seeing.
The largest Wilmette racial ethnic groups are white, 80%, followed by Asian, 12.3%, Hispanic, 3.2%. Once again, punctuating Joy's comment, constitutional conservative, 1% black. Why shouldn't the kids in the city get the same quality of it? The bottom line is, why shouldn't the kids in the city, why shouldn't kids across all school systems and all school districts get the same quality of education? Forget about what money is spent. The quality of education in the programs. Why shouldn't every school get the same as the north and west, the north sides, Lou? Why not? Why do you think it relies on charters and quote unquote choice? Choice to go pay for something and fill the pockets of other people while you're leaving kids in the south, west sides, and other parts of Chicago behind. Because your taxes pay for the schools, and you have a right to say that people should have choice, as opposed to demanding that the CPS does better in its funding to schools across the city, period. Thanks for that fact, Joy. YouTube. Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, there's a speck of non-whites.
Yeah, there's a speck in my
eye. In the Lily metaphor.
Do you know what I'm going to do right now?
Open up a bottle of Jack?
Yes, I have to go get it from the kitchen, so...
Oh, there's your mic.
Luckily, I had some Coke to mix it with. This show is driving me to drink, Ed.
Yeah, but it's a short trip.
That's true. Very short trip.
Man.
Cheers.
So yeah, cheers. So where were we? Paul Vallis is a lying sack of crap, and
yeah, I mean, we can move on from that. I mean, we've pretty much like established our hypothesis with the fact he's a lying piece of crap, and that pretty much proves it. But there was a great thread that I saw on Facebook also in regards to quid pro quo and pay to play. And if you could bring up that.
The Facebook or the video?
Oh, let's see here.
Let me get the.
Okay, yeah. So first let's run the YouTube video. Yeah.
Okay.
Get deeper into that.
Okay, we got a pre-roll ad. Hang on a second. Yo.
People connected to former Chicago resident Ken Griffin and several other conservative-leaning wealthy donors. If you are successful, describe the influence we should expect that they will have on your policies and appointments in managing our city.
Well, first of all, none. And let me point out that...
Should I back up to the front end of that question?
Sure.
Get the...
That our promises get to be as big as the city of Chicago.
Thank you. Mr. Vallis, you were supported by the Fraternal Order of Police, which recently elected John Kentonsmere to a new term as president. People connected to former Chicago resident Ken Griffin and several other conservative-leaning wealthy donors. If you are successful, describe the influence we should expect that they will have on your policies and appointments in managing our city?
Well, first of all, none. And let me point out that I've never taken any money from the Fraternal Order of Police. And
Liar.
He's a liar. Just like, oh, I live in Bridgeport. I'm a Chicago citizen. Oh, no, I don't live in Palos Heights, even though I take my property, my homestead exemption there. How much water the right is willing to carry for this guy? Because he's Bernie Epton 2.0.
And let me point out that I've never taken any money from the Fraternal Order of Police. And unlike my opponent, who's still on the payroll for the Chicago Teachers Union, and I've accepted no donations from the Fraternal Order of Police, unlike my opponent, who's largely funded by the Chicago Teachers Union. So they'll have—
yeah, but that's apples and oranges.
Yeah, so let's see who he has taken donations from. let me bring up my screen here. Hang on a second. Come on, Oreo. So let's see who he has taken donations from. You know, he takes the endorsement of the Fraternal Order of Police without taking their money. That's fine, but let's look at who's actually taking money from her. I saw this on Facebook. This came from Sheridan Park neighbors, Jeffrey Littleton, who's on my friends list. And what Jeffrey shared was the more you know. This gentleman, Mr. Ducoswas, is the top patron donor for Paul Vallis, having contributed 700. How do you pronounce it?
It's Duchessois.
Duchessois. Douchebag Sois.
This
gentleman, Mr. Douchebag Sois, is the top patron donor for Paul Vallis, having contributed. Thank you for correcting me, because I like saying it that way instead. Mr. Douchebag Sois is the top patron donor for Paul Vallis, having contributed $760,000 to the campaign. That is some real money. Who is this guy? Politically, not personally. I'm sure he's the most friendly and affable. Maybe a quick look at this prolific political spender's own top 10 can help. All right.
Okay, I know who he is now. Okay.
So let's look at all these donations he's made. It's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. So he's donated to scroll down it so we can see the firewall project. You have the video.
Hang on a second. Which tab is that? That is okay. That bunch of donations.
You need to actually open the image so that
Get Stuff Done pack.
All right, let me show mine, Ed, because that's what she said. Let me zoom this up so we can see. We actually need to open up the image was long, and it's taking a moment to load up here now. All right, let me
zoom in.
Yeah, that's the point. Is we need to zoom into it. Can you zoom in on that end?
I got it.
Okay, I got yours back up.
Whoops. Okay.
Okay. So because Jeffrey basically points out this one donation that Craig Douchebag Sois has donated to. What is the firewall project this top donor of Vallis gave $100,000 to? The donors are on a roll call of the wealthiest real estate, hedge fund, and other businesses in Illinois. They are conservative, mostly suburban, all wealthy. Here are the expenses of the firewall project and a link to the rest, and it's in this thread on Jeffrey's Facebook post. If, like me, you never heard of them, perhaps we are on the wrong side of the firewall. I don't know. Don't look good. And Jeffrey goes on to say, basically, the GOP is making a move on Chicago by the candidate who claims he's a Democrat. He's not really a Republican, Paul Vallis. And someone in the Facebook chat responds, that's how you win elections, Jeffrey. And to which Jeffrey responds, that is how you buy elections, Mark. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Just ask former Aldermans Moore and O'Connor. I could be more specific. More names if you can, too. It puts every challenger into the same quandary. Faulting the incumbent quickly places the novitiate into the same vulnerable position. You see it when so-called socialist Democrats challenge progressives. This post is about six-figure campaign contributions from an individual business interests and developers. Anything else is off topic and whataboutism. Does that make sense? I don't care if you're a Republican, Mark. Stay on topic.
So a little more information about Craig Duchossois.
Douchebag Swa.
Dick and Beverly's son. Now, some of you may remember the name Dick Duchossois because Dick Duchossois used to be the owner of Arlington Park Race Course.
Wow.
Recently purchased by the Chicago Bears. And so, yeah, and I guess he still owns some horses. So, yeah, they're big corporate, movers and shakers here. So, it's here it says for the Duchossois Group, from rail cars to investments. So, good, rail cars. Yeah, that's not a hot subject right now. So I wonder what else is going on with that. So maybe that's a story that we'll have to look into down the track, Jerry.
What did George Carlin always say, Ed? It's a big club and we're not in it.
Yeah.
And by we, I'm not talking about me and Ed. I'm talking about all of us. All of the average working class people struggling, following the laws, following the rules, doing what we're supposed to do. They live by a different set of rules and standards. And that's who's trying to buy their way into the 5th floor at City Hall to make sure that we have even less across the city of Chicago, as far as I'm concerned. That's how I see it. How do you see it, Ed?
It's a big club, Jerry.
All right. So speaking more about quid pro quo and what you get for your donations, can you pull up the next story? At least have that. From Block Club Chicago, since my browser's not cooperating as expected. Now, this comes to us from Block Club Chicago, is reported by Mick Dumke, or do you say Dumke? Chicago's big spenders. Here's who's paying serious cash to shape the next city council. It's not just the mayor's race. They just don't want to buy Paul Vallis to carve up the city, the pieces of the Chicago pie, to only those who've got the money. This Block Club Chicago article goes into how that quid pro quo and how your donations buy you influence in city council. City council, where our representatives are supposed to represent the residents of the neighborhoods in their wards, not all of the interests that are financing their campaigns. Chicago's big spenders. Here's who's paying serious cash to shape the next city council. Millions have fueled campaigns for city council. The way candidates get their campaign cash and who gives it to them often reveals a lot about their alliances, promises, and priorities. And by the way, can I also mention, just because it's a pet peeve of mine, Ed, how Lakeshore Drive was renamed when it didn't need to be renamed. Do you know who David Moore, the virtue signaling alderman, who spent all that time renaming Lakeshore Drive? Do you know who he's supporting? You know who he's endorsing?
Let me guess, Jerry. Hang on a second. I'm trying to think. Who could it be? That Vallis.
Wait a minute. Forgot I have a new prop that I haven't used.
Oh, you got a prop?
Yeah, man. Ooh. Let's see who.
Let's look in the Magic 8-Ball.
Yeah, let's see who David Moore is endorsing this election.
Or should we call it the Magic Infinity Ball?
Could it be Paul Vallis? Highly likely. So the virtue signaling alderman who couldn't figure out how to solve the food desert issue in his neighborhood, who spent all his time and efforts on renaming Lakeshore Drive, is endorsing the candidate who will probably abandon his side of town. I'm speculating. That's just a side note to influence in city council.
At least he'll be comforted by the brand new street signs as he's taking them to get away from his part of the city.
Dude, every time I drive anywhere and see the new street signs, I'm like, how much money did this cost? It wasn't necessary. It just wasn't necessary. And it's no disrespect to the black community to say we did not need Jean-Baptiste Pointe du Sable's name on every street sign pointing to Lakeshore Drive. It was a virtue signaling identity politic tactic that David Moore engaged in to advance his legacy, not Jean-Baptiste Pointe du Sable, because he got it done. And now he's going to try to get it done endorsing Paul Vallis for mayor. How's that stick everybody on the south and west sides? Chicagoans have long expected their older people to fix neighborhood and even block level issues from potholes to crime. But almost every city council race this year has been fueled, if not dominated, by money from outside its ward boundaries. During a time of political transition, unions, interest groups, and some of Chicago's wealthiest businessmen are waging an expensive ward-by-ward battle over the direction of the city, a block club analysis found. The way candidates get their campaign cash and who gives it to them often reveals a lot about their alliances, debts, promises, and priorities. Why? Aren't they just supposed to represent the people in their neighborhoods? I mean, this just speaks to the whole issue that's brought up with campaign finance reform. You cannot. Our representatives are not really representing the neighborhoods or the states that on a larger national level that they're responsible for, because they have to take so much time to raise campaign money to win, and then they are then beholden to those who gave them the campaign money, not their constituents and their communities. It's a payoff. It is a payoff. It's not it's donations. No, it's not. It's a payoff. It's all payoff. You can use whatever language you want to wrap it in something else. We know what it's about because we see this is business as usual in Chicago. Block Club analyzed campaign donation records for city council candidates in all 50 wards. That includes the 14 wards where no candidate won a majority in the election last month, sending the top two finishers in each ward to the April 4th runoff. The analysis covered donations from the beginning of 2022 through March 14th. To follow the money, and why should we be following the money with our alder people when they're really supposed to represent the people in their neighborhoods? This is the root core of the corruption in Chicago. Mm-hmm. To follow the money, you can look at the fundraising totals for each candidate, each ward here, and all of their contributors here. So let's scroll up.
Oh, scrolling. Okay.
I'm sorry, scroll down.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we're looking at contributions. Now, they're not identifying here, though.
What are you looking for?
All right, here. No, I needed to scroll down more. I mean, we had a graphic up for people to look at, but the analysis found more than $21 million has poured into city council races, including $18 million to, and you can just keep it up on the graph.
I'm looking for the graph. Oh, just the first.
Yeah, you passed.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean,
okay. It lets you pull up different words. Okay.
Yeah. So we don't need to pull up the different words yet. I just want that up while I'm reading, and then we can scroll to the different faces as I talk about that word. Okay. The analysis found more than $21 million is poured into city council races, including $18 million in direct donations to candidates' campaign funds and $3 million more spent independently by outside groups. The money has paid for a series of proxy wars, pitting longtime City Hall insiders or pro-business candidates against independents and progressives, who are more often than less, what are they doing, Ed? They're representing the people in their neighborhoods. That's why they're independents and progressives, because they're not beholden to anybody but the people that they represent. Not so long ago, powerful mayors and political machines dominated Chicago elections by controlling campaign workers and funds. Former Mayor Richard M. Daley often used his influence to cut off donations to alder people or hopefuls he didn't like. If you were on a shit list and he called certain people, they wouldn't give money, said Alderman Howard Brookins Jr. of the 21st. On the other hand, under Daley or his successor, Rahm Fuckface Emanuel, if the word got out that they were with you, it would start raining. There he is.
I thought I heard somebody say my name.
Yes, we did. Mayor Rahm Fuckface Emanuel. Just look at it's such a fuckface.
You know, it's actually pretty refreshing here, Jerry, for that people actually use my real middle name on a live stream, because most people, they just won't say it because it's too offensive and bizarre and shocking for them.
I'm glad you appreciate it.
But that you guys are actually just come out and say it. I mean, it's refreshing.
We're very honest here. We're very based in our presentation of commentary and news. Mayor Lori
I can see that.
Wait, we need to properly dismiss Mayor Fuckface Emanuel.
I take responsibility for what happened because it happened on my watch.
I think he made it back to Japan okay. But
what's that?
You never know. He might have made it back to Japan. Some people survive a giant stomping by a kaiju.
Man, how do we fail upward, Ed? I'm trying to figure out how to do that. But actually, I want to fail. Actually, you know what? I don't want to fail upward. I want to earn my upward progression, not fail upward like these other fucks like Rahm Emanuel. Ambassador.
Hey, Jack, did somebody say fail upward? You see my keys? No? Okay.
All right, so back to the article. Mayor Lori Lightfoot didn't have the same reach, said Brookins, who is retiring from the council after 20 years. So let's scroll up to Brookins now so we can see him there.
Ooh.
I think he's the first picture.
There he is.
Yeah. So we have a point of reference. Unlike the days of the political machine, older people don't have many patronage jobs to hand out in return for campaign work, and voters have shown more independence. Amid the shifting dynamics, the Chicago Teachers Union and its allies have gained power resisting the mayor and pushing a progressive agenda. At the same time, business groups and some trade unions are trying to retain their clout and fight off what they see as a troubling shift to the left. Why would labor unions think that any shift to the left is troubling? Aren't labor unions basically founded in leftist philosophies? Oh, wait a minute. That would mean that the labor unions are actually controlled now by a managerial class that's actually more pro-business than pro-labor and pro-worker, right?
Yeah, and sadly, there are a few of those in the city, and they focus more on.
They're the ones endorsing Paul Vallis.
Yeah, and they focus more on the mindset that Vallis is going to get them more city contracts, so it's going to keep their union members employed longer, which of course is ridiculous.
I think Warren wins the broadcast tonight. We have a new nickname for Rahm Emanuel, Rim Job Emanuel. I love it. Thank you, Warren.
Rim Job.
Love it.
Hey, nobody's called me that since college.
When you were a ballerina?
And we don't really discuss it any further, though, because, we don't want a channel strike. Well, you don't want a channel strike. I don't care. You guys can't catch me, suckers. I'm in Japan.
Do you know, Ed, now that he's gone?
Yeah.
Allegedly, there was a story that no one wanted to go near with Rahm Emanuel. And I can say allegedly, okay, because I'm not saying it's the fact, okay?
Uh-huh.
But allegedly, Rim Job Emanuel, it's come to me on like authority from somebody who knew someone who knew. His motorcade would regularly take him to see a mistress in Ravenswood, which doesn't surprise me at all. Allegedly, Rim Job Emanuel had a mistress that, obviously nobody wants. And you know what? Fine. I mean, we don't want to talk about people's personal lives, but I just thought if you've got your motorcade taking you to go, do your business on the side during working hours, that is something that people should report on. But allegedly, that's what we've heard. That's what I've heard. All right, back to the article, and it doesn't surprise me at all. Okay. Unions, business organizations, and rich donors now provide much of the money candidates use for campaign workers and campaign ads in wards across the city. Older people and council candidates say it's very difficult to compete without resources. If you're John Smith off the street and you don't have any money and you can't raise money, you can't win, said Alderman Nick Sposato of the 38th. It's not fair, but I don't know the answer. Sposato was reelected in February after putting $119,000 of his own money into his campaign fund. And I give him credit for that. Put your money where your mouth is. Mm-hmm. Top dollar. The 43rd Ward, centered on affluent Lincoln Park and near North Side, has a history of high-priced city council races. 4 years ago, then Alderman Michelle Smith and 5 opponents raised nearly $2 million total for a ward. $2 million for a ward. Smith held on to her seat after a runoff, but she resigned this summer 6 months before the election. Lightfoot appointed attorney Timmy Knutson to finish the term. And let's not forget, Timmy Knutson also hates homeless people. As the incumbent, if only for a few months, Knutson was put in a better position to bring in campaign money. He collected about $348,000 through mid-March. Records show with his largest donations coming from wealthy business owners. Among them, investor Matthew Pritzker, a cousin of Governor J.B. Pritzker, trading firm founder Donald Wilson, a frequent contributor to candidates from both parties, and the Illinois Realtors Political Action Committee. Knutson also received thousands of dollars from political insiders and lawyers. Between Knutson and his 5 foes, the 43rd Ward race generated about $14 million in contributions.
1.4.
I'm sorry, 1.4. 1.4, thank you. In contributions this time around. Knutson managed to get about 27% of the vote in the first round in February, good enough to top his 5 rivals, but well short of the 50% he needed to avoid a runoff. Close behind him was Brian Comer, president of a neighborhood group with 24%, though Comer has only raised about $53,000. The two will square off in the runoff. And I am so glad to see that Knutson is going to be challenged in the runoff.
Yeah.
Because it's right in that statement. Brian Comer, president of a neighborhood group, not a candidate who was appointed by Lori Lightfoot, who is getting contributions from Matthew Pritzker, trading firm founder Donald Wilson, Illinois Realtors Political Action Committee. These are the insider deals. These are the private deals that people expect a return on their investment for. So I'm really hoping that Comer whips his ass.
Yeah, so am I, because 53,000 versus 1.4 million, that would be a hell of an upset.
People in the, which ward is this?
That's 43rd.
43rd Ward, get out the vote against Knutson. Vote for Comer. Quote, like any first-time candidate and a community-focused candidate, my donors, they're people from the community, their friends, their family, Comer said. They include Comer himself. At $7,400, he's the biggest donor to his campaign. Another one who probably can barely afford buying his emancipation, funding his own campaign. I was about to say buying his emancipation, and what you're talking about. I'm talking about.
Whoops. Yeah, that's something different.
Huh?
That's something different.
That's something different, as opposed to $1,000 to buy your emancipation. But we'll maybe talk about that in a future podcast.
Easy now.
Comer said it was tough to raise funds because many businesses and other potential donors were concerned about going against an incumbent ally of the mayor's. He had people falling over them to give him money, Comer said. He described Knutson's leading backers as people behind the scenes, people in power wanting to hold on to power. Knutson said, and you know what, there's nothing wrong with holding on to power so long as you're representing the people in the community that you're supposed to wield the power for, not for your private business interests.
And there's Comer.
There's Comer. Knutson said Comer is well known in the 43rd Ward, yet 5 of its former aldermen endorsed Knutson instead. Quote, I've been building a super broad coalition of supporters, including donors who gave as little as a few dollars, Knutson said.
Okay, dude.
Go fuck yourself, Timmy. Knutson acknowledged that his fundraising was aided by political and professional connections made through his work as a corporate lawyer, activist, and now office holder. I think I'm viewed as an alderman who's pro-business and pro-Chicago, Knutson said. What about pro-resident, pro-Chicagoan? Isn't that factor in? Self-funders. Knutson's fundraising wasn't the only reason so much cash flowed into the 43rd Ward race. 2 of his other previous opponents put considerable sums of their own money into their campaigns. See, this is what it is. You got to self-fund your campaign because no one donates to you because you're overwhelmed by your opponent getting all of this big money from donors who are going to expect something back once your opponent wins that election.
Yeah, and
locally and at the 5th floor level.
And to address a point earlier, I think made by Spazzato, the solution, dude, is to have public funding of elections and to not allow political ads on television and to have publicly aired forums and debates so that we have an actual sense of what these people stand for and aren't distorted by all this garbage we see on TV and hear on radio and watch on the pre-roll ads on YouTube.
Well stated. Attorney Rebecca Jonowitz poured $750,000 into her campaign fund as she made her second run for the seat. That made her the city's top individual donor to a council race. Jonowitz used some of the money to run campaign ads on TV, which is not common in council elections. One of the other 43rd Ward contestants, Steve Botsford, was mostly self-funded as well. Botsford, a real estate developer, gave almost $85,000 to his campaign. Jonowitz finished third in the first round of 43rd Ward voting. Botsford came in fifth. Other candidates around the city had more success after using their own money. On the Northwest Side, Spazzato said he put $119,000 into his political fund in the hopes it would intimidate political challengers. All that was a scare tactic. I thought if I put a bunch of money into my campaign, maybe nobody will run, he said. It didn't work. I always felt Spazzato ended up with 4 challengers. The closest, Ed Bannon, put $53,000 into his own bid, but Spazzato won with 55% of the vote in the first round. I always felt that, can you scroll down to Spazzato?
Yeah.
I always felt that unless you have some of your own skin in the game, if you don't believe in yourself, how can you ask your friend for money, Spazzato said. He added, I've always sucked at raising money. You know what? Props to him. I get that.
Yeah, I understand.
I hate asking people for money, like just on a side note, to have to raise money to produce a film. I put my own money into my first movie, and this time around, I put a lot of money into developing this film because I don't think anybody, I mean, I don't have the money to finance a film, but it's like if I'm going to ask other people to donate, I need to put some of my own skin in the game. So I applaud and give a lot of credit to these older people who self-fund or put their own money to their campaigns. It shows their commitment to what they're doing and that they're not going to be beholden to all these outside interests that hope to control them if they win. Thank you. Support us at patreon.com/Chicago Corner. On the west side,
it had occurred to me, Jerry. I'm like, I'm looking at all these funds flying into campaigns, $1.4 million, and I'm thinking, damn, it sure would be nice to have a budget or just to be able to, pay for all the stuff that we do, or be able to,
the stuff that
go
we
out
do
on the weekends and spend money at a local establishment.
The stuff that we do, ladies and gentlemen, let me share with you what it costs to set yourself up as an LLC, so that you can basically operate on your own. $1,000 to start. $1,000 is what it costs. Trademarking your brand, registering for an FEIN with the IRS, and registering your business with the state of Illinois. Grand total, $1,000. That's what Chicago Corner is spending. Actually, that's what I'm spending to take us to the next level. So, and that doesn't include other expenses that are coming up. So when I say I'm impressed with people who put their money where their mouth is because they believe in the cause and what they're doing, we are those people here too. So give a lot of credit to I guess Alderman Spazzato here, as well as other candidates. And I know that I'm going off on a tangent here, and it's probably, this isn't helping, but we're very passionate about what we do here. Yeah. So, and we're glad we have all of you supporting us and following us that believe in what we're doing here, because this is a civic responsibility for all of us who are putting our time in on this channel. To talk about what's important here in Chicago. So let's go back to the article. The lowest funded race on the west side, Alderman Chris Taliaferro of the 29th has enjoyed well-connected assistance in his own campaign for a third term, but that's not all. He's also worked to cut off funding for his rival, said C.B. Johnson, his runoff opponent. The alderman had shut down any avenues to pursue for me to raise money, said Johnson, leader of a nonprofit drug treatment organization. Johnson said Taliaferro has pressured business and community leaders not to send campaign donations Johnson's way. That's the kind of games he's played since he's been in office, Johnson said. The 29th Ward race has been the lowest funded runoff campaign in the city. Records show, like other incumbents, though, Taliaferro has received most of his large contributions from powerful supporters outside the ward. Taliaferro's top two donors were Michael Sachs, millionaire CEO of the GCM Grosvenor investment firm, and Sachs's wife, Carrie, a board member at pro-choice group Personal PAC. Each gave Taliaferro $6,900, a regular supporter of local Democrats. Michael Sachs was an advisor to Emanuel and remains active in politics and policymaking. Taliaferro also received $5,000 from J.B. Pritzker, as well as smaller sums from council colleagues and other political insiders. In all, the 29th Ward alderman brought in $111,000. On top of that, pro-business groups, including the Illinois Realtors Association, independently spent thousands more promoting Taliaferro. What do you think they all expect for their donations, guys? For him to represent
$1 million.
They expect him to represent the interests of the people in his ward or their business interests in that ward. Realtors associations, buying up real estate and allotting a certain portion to affordable housing when all housing should be affordable.
Favorable treatment.
But Taliaferro said Johnson is the one who needs to answer questions about his fundraising. I've been completely upfront and honest where donations are coming from, and I don't think my opponent can say the same, he said. Scroll out. Yeah. Johnson certainly can't say he has revealed all his donors. His filings with the state election board have reported just $1,000 in contributions, though he said he's raised more, including $25,000 in personal funds that he donated to the campaign.
I like the pinstripes.
Very Burger King looking.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the tie, but I like the pinstripes.
Under election laws, Johnson's campaign should have disclosed all contributions of $150 or more. Johnson has also failed to file his most recent quarterly report and faces possible fines, according to a spokesperson for the state's Board of Elections. Johnson promised his campaign would submit the required paperwork soon. I'm going to pay the fine if there is a fine. I'm not going to neglect my responsibilities. Johnson's campaign has been backed by longtime U.S. Representative Danny Davis, and Johnson said that he has assembled a team of volunteers. Help people, that's easy. Money is what's hard for me, he said. People I know can't afford to do donations. Rich friends with benefits. This is a long article, so we might just pass along from this section, but well beyond the 29th Ward, Michael and Carrie Sachs are leading funders of efforts to keep incumbent and centrist alderpeople in the city council. Altogether, the couple gave $292,000 to 17 council incumbents and 5 hopefuls. In fact, the Sachs gave more to council candidates than the Chicagoland Chamber of Commerce or any business group. Michael Sachs has also donated $1 million since December to the Get Stuff Done Super PAC, also known as an independent expenditure committee. Super PACs can spend as much money as they want bashing or praising candidates, but they're not allowed to coordinate with the candidates or contribute directly to their campaigns. While Sachs is its leading donor, Get Stuff Done has also been funded with large checks from other wealthy business owners such as Leuna, Chicago Laborers District Council, a collection of union locals. The Super PAC has reported spending more than $1.2 million supporting candidates it considers collaborative, in quotes.
Wait a minute. How much was that?
$1 million.
1.2. Oh, wait.
It considers collaborative or opposing self-described lefties and progressives. Let that sink in. The Sachs have spent more than $1.2 million supporting candidates it considers collaborative or opposing self-described lefties and progressives. If the tale of two cities in Chicago couldn't be clearer, you've got the Sachs, who probably should be first in line for those torches, pitchforks, and guillotines that we're always talking about.
Take your torches and go!
Yep. muted.
Causes. For example, Get Stuff Done used about $38,000 of its money on ads against 46th Ward hopeful Angela Clay, a community organizer who's been endorsed by the Chicago Democratic Socialists of America. Class war. This is not about R&Ds, people. It's not about black and white. This is a class struggle that we're involved in right here. And they're pitting us against each other with rich fucks like, what are their names? The Sacks, spending all this money to make sure that the interests of people in these neighborhoods are not met.
Yeah, and just a reminder, the Get Stuff Done pack, get stuff done for who?
The rich people that want to hold on to the power and not pay people fair living wages, not support labor rights, not support equal education across the board because they want to be able to pay for the private schools or the vouchers that they can send their kids to because their kids are better than other people's kids living in the same city that they live in. All right, the influence of super PACs. Get Stuff Done is one of at least 4 super PACs to spend significant money on city council races this election cycle, records show. A super PAC run by the Illinois Network of Charter Schools has spent $370. This is like more money than most people make in 2 years, 2 or 3 years of their life.
Yeah.
Working.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're spending so much money. There's so much money piled into these elections.
Yep.
It's insane. Meanwhile, we're just scraping by here and doing our little live stream on our corner of the internet. So thank you very much to all of our Patreon supporters. If you'd like to support Chicago Corner, head over to patreon.com/Chicago Corner. As little as what, $1? If you want to throw in $5, that would be great.
We have a $5 a month donor tier, which I don't think it's that much. I've donated $5 a month to other people, but given the extraordinary costs of registering and trademarking and doing everything else we need to do, that was $1,000. Hey man, any Patreon support we get from people would be very helpful so we can continue to broadcast here for everybody. Even if you decide to like donate for a month or two and then cut it off as some other people did, it's still helpful. So anyway,
so whatever you can do, and if you can't afford to donate, just make sure to like the stream, share it with everybody you know, ask people to subscribe to our channel, because the more people that subscribe, the more attention the channel will get from the algorithm, and the jazz.
Although I am happy to say we finally have control over our super chats. So anybody contributing through the super chats, that goes into the Chicago Corner account now. So that's very helpful if anybody wants to super chat or do super stamps or whatever they're called. All right, so a super. You know what, Ed? I hate begging for money. I really hate doing this stuff. I really hate asking people to donate because I like what we do here. But
look, if public radio can do it once in a while, so can we, right? Yeah, I don't think it's asking too much to let people, if people can enjoy some of the content, even if you're not enjoying 100% of the content. If you're enjoying, I don't know, what do you say, like maybe 20%, 25% of the content, that's still pretty good. Considering a lot of the programming out there really is crap. So if you're even enjoying like more than 25% of the content, then please, by all means, become a Patreon supporter. It'll definitely improve our content.
Or toss us. Thank you, Kathy. Love you, dear. Thank you so much. Ed, I don't know if you've done this little exercise, but I decided to just to indulge myself. I decided to tally up all of the hours that I've put into hosting, producing, live streaming, everything I've committed to this channel for the past 2 years since stewardship was passed to me. At $25 an hour, which I think we all agree should be the minimum wage. And keep in mind, too, Block Club Chicago is starting interns at $22 an hour. At $25 an hour for a 25-plus year media veteran, if I was to basically add up the value of my work here at $25 an hour, it would go north of $27,000. That's the value of all the time that I would bill a client to put into building this channel with you, Ed and Kira, over the past couple of years. And we've done it, out of our commitment to serving the community. But, when expenses start to pile up and it becomes, we have to put more money into this. That's why we're here asking people to support us, because none of that the past 2 years was ever paid for.
Warren reminds me that we still need to do a karaoke night. That's something I want to have in our future. Is one of these times when we do an outing. I know we'll do these meetups where we'll meet up at a bar, and hopefully some of our viewers can come out and spend some time and chat with us. And I definitely want to do that at a place that has pizza sometime. And I know that we are going to have a pizza party that I will actually host coming down the road. But a karaoke night would be very nice. So when we can find a place in the city that does karaoke. I can't remember if that Peace Brewery and Pizza Restaurant still does the live band karaoke, but if they do, that might be an option. But on with the rest of the show, right?
On with the rest of the show. This is not attractive. I'm not trying to be a saint. I'm trying to be transparent about what we're facing here at great expense.
But
that's what I'm trying to do. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, let's get back to the article. A super PAC, and Joy also shares in the chat. Thank you for trying to do the math here. Let me look at the math here. Thank you, Warren, for that. Appreciate it. So Joy says if you make 40, I hit the wrong button here. Joy says if you make $40,000 a year, it would take 4 years. Whoops, didn't do the math right. Never mind. Yes, I did. Okay, let me get back to the article so we can do the math here. Can you take that one down?
Yep.
A super PAC run by the Illinois Network of Charter Schools has spent $379,000 total, including $21,000 to boost Clay's 46th ward opponent, former congressional aide Kim Ways. And the Illinois Realtors Super PAC has put more than $128,000 behind Ways, part of its $833,000 in council spending citywide. That's in addition to $160,000 another Realtors committee gave directly to pro-business incumbents and hopefuls. From the other direction, Working Families for Chicago has spent about $535,000 backing progressives and opposing more conservative challengers. That super PAC was created by United Working Families, a political organization whose members include the Chicago Teachers Union and other progressive groups. On top of the super PAC spending, a separate United Working Families fund gave more than $80,000 in direct contributions to candidates, including money and staff support to Clay. Clay previously told Block Club she was part of a long-running community-driven effort to improve housing and public safety, just making sure that neighborhoods understand that they have a community that wants to see them thrive and wants to be a part of their success. She criticized Waits for taking campaign money from special interest groups. Wasn't Waits the one who also, I think, did some work for Rim Job Emmanuel?
I think it's pronounced Walls.
Walls. I was seeing it as W-A-I-Z. Sorry, Walls. Yeah,
I don't know, but
thanks for the correction. Yeah, she criticized Walls for. I think she was, because she was the one we were talking about in that race.
That's the one we were going to hook you up with.
Yeah. Not anymore. Walls shrugged it off. Who gives me campaign contributions is going to have no bearing on how I vote on the council and how I lead and govern, Walls said. That's bullshit. Sorry, that's bullshit. And we know it. Because every other alderperson who's taken huge campaign contributions is beholden to the people who contributed to their campaigns. How could she even say this? She's as bad a liar as Palos Paul is. Walls said her experience in government means she's better prepared to lead the ward. Not necessarily. No, it's not. Because all of these people who say they've got experience in government, that keep fucking things up over and over and over again, their experience shows that they've learned nothing and they've done nothing. What they're doing is they're continuing to serve the interests that prop them up financially to retain that grasp on power. That's what that's about.
Upward.
Yes. We've got a lot of problems the city is facing, and we can't just have the council be filled with people who are about making headlines, Walls said.
Okay.
teachers and cops. It was one of the city's most crowded races. After Alderman Roderick Sawyer decided to run for mayor, 11 candidates made the ballot to succeed him as leader of the South Side 6th Ward. Few were able to raise money. Unions stepped in. Pastor William Hall led the way in the 6th Ward campaign funds after receiving about $36,000 from the Chicago's Teachers Union and $53,000 from various affiliates of the Service Employees International Union. Hall finished first in the February voting. After the checks to Hall's campaign, the largest donation in the race went to another candidate, police officer Barbara Bunvell, $22,000 from the Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge Number 7, the union for rank and file police officers in Chicago. You know what I'm starting to realize, Ed?
No picture of Barbara.
Based on our own experiences, it's very expensive for people to support candidates or support anybody that needs support because it's just expensive. It's just expensive to survive. Yeah. Which is why the powerful retain their tentacles, their claws over all this stuff because they've got the money to spend to keep the power. That's what it comes down to. When I see all these aldermanic candidates, from the self-funded ones who are putting the money that they have where their mouth is to the ones who are funded by these extraordinarily rich, wealthy donors that expect something back, this is why nothing ever changes. The campaign collection plate wasn't as full for Richard Wooten, a pastor and retired police officer. Without union support, Wooten gave himself $6,600, more than half of the $11,000 he raised. Still, Wooten finished second in February to make the runoff against Hall, finishing fourth. Bunville did not advance. The 6th Ward race was part of a citywide pattern. The Teachers Union has donated $606,000 to 16 city council candidates since the beginning of 2022. All seven incumbents it backed in wards 1, 20, 22, 25, 33, 35, and 40 won re-election in February, and 4 hopefuls in wards 5, 6, 36, and 46 made it to the runoffs. That works out to a success rate for the Teachers Union of 69% so far. The Police Union has a lower batting average. The Police Union gave $446,000 altogether to 17 council candidates. 7 of the incumbents it backed, won outright in wards 9, 13, 15, 23, 38, 39, and 41, while another 45th Ward Alderman Jim Gardner ended up in a runoff. But only 2 of the 9 hopefuls it supported made runoffs in Ward 10 and 11. That's a success rate for the Police Union of 53%. Now, why is the Police Union spending so much money to have any kind of influence over our older people? Aren't the police and the Fraternal Order Police? They're providing a public service. They're public servants. Right? What's all that money going towards, right?
Yeah, you would think that a public service like the police would be supportive of anyone who's mayor and wanting to do the best for all of the citizens and all the citizens in the city. I didn't even drink alcohol.
Because they're supposed to represent all of us, not just their own special interests, and they're not doing that. Yeah. This last paragraph.
Yeah, it's like if you got. All right, you know what? I'm not going down the rabbit hole again. We've ranted.
No, go, please, go ahead.
Tonight, I've said it enough tonight. We can continue.
All right. Lastly, finishing up the article about machine busting. 16 years ago, before the Chicago Teachers Union or Fraternal Order of Police began putting significant money into election campaigns, the Service Employees International Union declared war on the City Hall political apparatus dominated by then Mayor Daley. The union's goal, an official said, was to build a machine-like operation of its own to fight for workers' rights and progressive policies. The Service Employees Union was never able to end Daley's control of the city council. But as Daley retired and 2 other mayors passed through City Hall, the union helped start a slow-growing independent movement. The union's influence and its campaign spending remain significant. Affiliates of the Service Employees International Union have given more than $1 million altogether to council candidates this year, more than any other labor or business group. The union has also learned how to place its bets. Of the 39 candidates who received money from the Service Employees International Union, just 3 lost outright in February, and 2 of those defeated candidates were beaten by foes who also got funds from an affiliate of the union. The union will have friends in City Council. And that is the end of the Block Club Chicago article. So let's see who we've got coming up next. Very briefly, we saw that Bernie Sanders stumped for Brandon Johnson at a Get Out the Vote rally. You and Kira very well spoke about, I thought very thoughtfully spoke about the value of endorsements.
And for what it's worth, it looks like Sanders had a pretty good turnout at that rally. So whoever thought it would be a good idea to bring Bernie in for Brandon, it probably will pay off.
Do you think it helped?
I don't know how much. Again, I mean, it was probably a lot of people who were already going to vote for Brandon, right? So at this point, it's about getting them fired up and maybe reaching out to others and friends and family and coworkers and acquaintances to find out if they'll also support. So I mean, it's voter outreach, right? You know, it's kind of what it is. It's to get supporters fired up or motivated
by a candidate who rolled over after being fucked over twice by the Democratic establishment.
Yeah, that's the issue I have with him.
Yeah, I do too.
Among other issues.
I mean, I'm glad he came out to support Johnson.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know what? I'm going to be Ed in this election. I don't think we've got. Clearly, we have a better candidate than another candidate, but I don't think we had the best choice of candidates this election. I think Johnson is the better choice. I don't know that he's the ideal choice, but he's the choice we were given as opposed to the privatizer. Yeah. So, I mean, you know.
Yeah, but as far from my perspective, it's not a lesser of two evils situation this time around.
Johnson's not evil the way that I think Vallis is evil.
Yeah, I mean, local elections, it's a different animal from national elections. And we're seeing that here. You know, we obviously the muckraking is similar, and the mudslinging and the political ads are worse.
Yeah. And to Joy's point here, yeah, police-backed candidates are sus. Definitely. All right, I'm going to bring up the next. So here's an issue that's near and dear to all of our hearts.
Yes.
And I was not satisfied with either of their responses, Ed. I'm going to say right up front here. I don't know why my screen is not. Hang on a second, guys. Let me see if I can open this up. Can you pop this one up?
Yep.
Stand by, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to stop trying to pop screens up on this end because clearly it's. I got to get a new computer. I got to buy a new. I got to afford a new computer. You're having a little bit better luck though with memory on your end, it seems.
Yeah, but I have to try really hard to get
Yeah,
it to
I get it. Thank you for. Yeah. All right. So at the last debate, they were asked about the speed cameras. Johnson and Vallis say they'll phase out speed cameras in final televised debate before election. Phase out. What does phase out mean? Both candidates reiterated pledges to eliminate the cameras, which fine Chicago drivers going 6 miles per hour above the speed limit. This comes from Quinn Myers. Brandon Johnson and Paul Vallis pledged again Tuesday to remove city-operated cameras, leave it on that picture there, that find speeding drivers while sparring over the other's resume and experience a week out from the April 4th runoff election. Vallis, we know who he is, blah, 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 receiving 30% of the vote, 33% of the vote. Johnson, a Cook County commissioner, followed with about 22%. Tuesday's debate was hosted by CBS Chicago. The two candidates traversed mostly familiar territory. concerning public safety, school choice, and taxation, and both pledged they would phase out speed cameras when asked about the program in a lightning round question and answer session. So Johnson said, "I'm for phasing them out if the Constitution allows us to," Johnson said. What does that mean? What does that? I don't understand what the Constitution has to do with it. Actually, the Constitution says you have a right to face your accuser. And I'm sorry, speed cameras in all of their iterations, whether it's speed cameras or red light cameras, there's nobody monitoring things at those. There's nobody who actually saw you in that moment for you to go to court and face them. Traffic cameras are by their nature unconstitutional. Period. The fact that they were all slid through as a revenue generating device for cities and municipalities when they've been outlawed across the rest of the state, I don't understand what Johnson's talking about if the Constitution allows us to. The Constitution does allow you to. Stop hedging. Stop waffling.
Yeah, something tells me, Jerry, that had he been able to fit that 15 minutes in and come on our show, we could have had that conversation with him about the red light cameras.
But I still think
maybe changed his view on that.
Well, maybe. I don't know, Ed. I wish it'd be nice to think that, but I don't know. And if we can't, why can't you? Wherever a speeding ticket has been accumulated or acquired, that zip code should get the revenue. Yeah, but it's still not about safety. It's about accumulating revenue, Commissioner Johnson, right? So I'm sorry. His answer is bullshit. So is Paul Vallis's. Johnson wrote off. Now, in a mayoral questionnaire compiled by WBEZ and the Sun-Times, Johnson wrote the cameras were a, quote, cash grab and called for investing in more traffic calming infrastructure like speed bumps and reduced speed limits in certain areas. That's reasonable. Vallis agreed Tuesday speed cameras should be eliminated for the most part, but he said he believes they do serve a purpose near schools, at least during school hours. No, they don't. No. They don't. Actually, there was a study that came out, Ed, and I wish I had remembered it before reading this article, that has shown that accidents have actually increased across Chicago because of speed and red light cameras.
Because of people jamming on their brakes and causing rear ends and et cetera,
yes.
et cetera.
Exactly. And when we saw Lori Lightfoot's motorcade running cameras in school zones, we know it's not about safety. It's about revenue generation. Because if it were about safety, wouldn't Mayor Lightfoot and Rahm Emanuel before her tell their motorcade drivers to drive slower through school zones? Rahm Emanuel was famously quoted, "Well, I paid the fines." Well, then it was never about safety, jagoff. Because it was about safety, you would have had your motorcade make sure to go the limit or less in the school zones. So stop with the jerking off about, oh, this is all about safety. It's about revenue. And it's about, you guys cannot wean yourself from taking more money from people in a city that has enough money that constantly claims it's broke on the backs, especially with these cameras in again, South and West Side communities are the ones where these cameras proliferate. Barely downtown, probably more on the North Side. Yeah, what do they need?
He brings up a huge point here.
You know what? I'm not advocating for running red lights, and I'm not advocating for speeding. Clearly, that's not what I'm advocating for. But these are gotcha laws, gotcha cameras that were put in place to pad the pockets of the court. And we've seen in other municipalities around the city, all of these lawsuits where public officials were bribed and paid off by the owners of these traffic camera companies. It's a money grab. It's picking our pockets. It's not about safety. It's about what they can get away with. I really think that these now this is Vallis. I really think that these speed cameras, with some exceptions, should be phased out. And I also think that almost immediately we should go back to the old speed cap threshold, Vallis said in a post-debate news conference. These cameras and the fees and the fines that are levied are just punishing the working poor most, and it's really causing a devastating impact on poor communities. Nothing's going to happen, Ed. Neither is going to do. I'm predicting right now, whoever wins, they're not going to do a goddamn thing about the traffic scammers.
A little bit of information, Jerry, if I can pop this up really quick. This is from July 2022. Speed camera citations have generated $59 million in revenue for the city since being imposed in March of, well, they say last year, they mean 2021. So in the first half of 2022, the city issued 1,131,686 speeding tickets, down 14% from 2021. Significantly higher than years before the new law was in effect. So,
speed camera fines have been a controversial subject for years in Chicago, with some critics pointing to research showing the camera disproportionately target Black and Latino Chicagoans. Advocates argue they're a necessary tool to slow down drivers and keep pedestrians, cyclists, and other drivers safe. In July, City Council voted on an ordinance that would revert the threshold that triggers a speed camera ticket from 6 to 10 miles per hour over the limit. Alder people were deeply divided on the issue, ultimately voting 26 to 18 to kill the measure. Why do you think? Could it have been for the interest that, oh, I don't know, we're going to support their campaigns? More bullshit, different day. Valance and Johnson also attacked each other's management and budgeting experience during and after Tuesday's debate. Valance sought to minimize Johnson's resume while touting his time as Chicago's budget director from 1990 to 93 under Mayor Richard M. Daley.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
No, it's not. Look, I'm dealing with a candidate who was a teacher for 4 years and has never managed anything, Valance said. Just voting for a budget as a county commissioner is not managing the budget. Johnson bristled at that remark, and after the debate, he said it was not just offensive to me. This is offensive to every working person in the city of Chicago. The fact that he's been dismissive of okay, you know what? He didn't need to parse this as a black. This had nothing to do with his color. Sorry, didn't. But Johnson said, the fact that he's been dismissive of a black man who taught for 4 years in Chicago public schools is, Johnson said during the debate before pausing, you got to stop doing that, Paul. You just do. I got elected. I've been an organizer, know how to put together a plan. I don't think Valance's insensitivity had anything to do with his race, but whatever. I guess you got to do what you got to do to try to, get those points. The two candidates have spent the past month campaigning across the city and snagging endorsements from public officials, unions, and other groups. Valance's supporters include Senator Dick Durbin, former Illinois Secretary of State Jesse White, retired Representative Bobby Rush, former mayoral candidates Willie Wilson and Jamal Green.
Who?
And a group of West and South Side Alder people. Johnson has recently been backed by former mayoral candidate Representative Jesus the Stash Garcia, civil rights icon Reverend Jesse Jackson, and various progressive alder people. Senator Bernie Sanders headlined a Thursday rally at the University of Illinois in Chicago in support of Johnson. So that's the speed camera update. Nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Do you think?
Yeah. So, well, I don't know who framed the word phase out, whether it was the people asking them the question or whether they actually used that phrase.
So here's what I have to say, Ed.
But it tells me that they're not prioritizing.
No. Phase out gives them wiggle room as opposed to, oh, fuck, they're gone. I'm getting rid of them day one.
Yeah.
There's no question. It's a regressive tax. And they should have never been put in when I think they were put in under Emanuel. All right. So next story is about 3 proposals chosen to bring more than 1,000 apartments to LaSalle Street. Can you put that one up, Ed?
Yeah, hang on a second.
Okay. And this is what kills me in the headline. Okay, this is what kills me in the headline. The winning proposals are slated to get $188 million in TIF dollars and will bring 1,059 apartments to the financial district. 317 of them affordable.
Yeah. Affordable.
If you're going to be getting $188 million in TIF dollars, make them all fucking affordable.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm on board with that.
This is from Melody Mercado at Block Club Chicago. And, Lightfoot was doing her victory lap before she gets tossed out of office. Oh, I did this. I did this. I know, we can't imitate her. 3 proposals are in line to receive a combined $188 million in tax increment financing as the city announced the winners of its LaSalle Street Reimagine initiative Tuesday. The proposals, which require city council approval, by the way, by alder people whose campaigns are propped up by wealthy real estate donors, as we just talked about in the previous story, let's not forget to factor that in. What does the triple bean have to do with this?
No reason.
Okay.
Oh, can I just mention that I actually heard Lightfoot in an interview a couple days ago, and her voice ain't anywhere close to as raspy as it has been. Like she's taken a couple weeks to rest her voice, and she actually sounds like a human again.
Oh, that's interesting. So that accounts for the raspy voice.
Instead of a person who like is a 10-pack a minute chain smoker.
Or just screaming, yelling people down that disagree with her all the time.
Maybe that's what it was.
I think it was. I think it was her constant defensive reactions to people who would criticize her, be critical of her leadership or critical of things here in Chicago that she constantly.
Yeah, so it's like her vocal cords are starting to heal.
Yeah. Well, we wish her well with her vocal cord healing. The proposals which require city council approval are for 111 West Monroe Street, 135 South LaSalle Street, and 208 South LaSalle Street. They're slated to create 1,059 apartments, 317 of them affordable. One of the again, you're getting public TIF money. Why only are 317 of them affordable? Shouldn't they all be affordable? One of the finalists was the most expensive project pitched to city officials, and the other two are spearheaded by developers affiliated with the Thompson Center overhaul, which is slated to become Google offices. The LaSalle Street corridor is a vital economic engine for our entire city. We must ensure it remains that way, transforming it from a homogeneous office district into a thriving mixed-use community. By converting underutilized office space to residual units, we will make the Loop a safer, more dynamic, and vibrant place to live and work, Mayor Lori Lightfoot said in a statement. Announced in September, the LaSalle Reimagined Initiative aims to add more than 1,000 residential units, 300 of them affordable. Wait, now it's 300. I thought it was 317.
Different set of units.
To the financial district by offering developers tax increment financing and other incentives to repurpose historical buildings along LaSalle Street. The affordable apartments will be available to households earning up to 60% of the area's median income. $43,800 is the median income for somebody living downtown?
Yeah, that's not a living wage.
That's not a living wage at all. That's like just above poverty level.
Which people still don't understand.
$50,000 for a two-person household, or $62,520 for a family of. What family of four can afford?
Nobody. Yeah.
Nobody can survive on 60. No family of four can. A single-person household can barely afford to survive on $62,000. Completely disconnected with reality.
Yeah.
This is such a crock of shit.
Multi-level retail space, terrace green space, a hotel, restaurants, basement parking, top-of-the-line amenities, and a possible grocery store are also featured among the three chosen proposals. The three finalists were narrowed down from 9 proposals that were submitted to the city in December. Each proposal was required to set aside 30% of its residential units for affordable housing and create neighborhood-oriented. This is just more. Come on,
Who
man.
set that?
More this.
Who set that? Who set that requirement? And why didn't they set that to like 100% or at least 50?
Tale of two cities, Ed. Tale of two cities.
Ridiculous.
In February, the city's Department of Planning and Development knocked 3 candidates out of the running, with officials saying one application was incomplete, another submitted an ineligible location, and another proposal was withdrawn. Can you scroll down to the next picture?
Oh, yeah.
The proposals the city failed to move forward on include 30 North LaSalle Street and 2 submissions for 105 West Adams Street. One of the submissions for 105 West Adams by Celadon Partners and Blackwood Group included the highest ratio of affordable housing among its competitors at 75% of 247 apartments. So wait a minute. So the once again, The proposal that the city failed to move forward include 30 North LaSalle Street and 2 submissions for 106 West Adams. One of the submissions for 105 West Adams by Celadon Partners and Blackwood Group included the highest ratio of affordable housing. So naturally,
at
the city didn't move
75%.
forward on it. Right, at 75%. So naturally, the city said, "No, get out of here. You're out the door."
Wow. They should put all of these on hold and wait till the next mayor comes in to take a look at these proposals and maybe think again.
Well, if Paul Vallis won, there would be no affordable housing.
Yeah. And remember a while back when we were talking about how, there were a whole bunch of vacant buildings or vacant units in the South Street corridor, and that we could maybe solve part of the homeless problem by giving people places to live in and maybe a job too.
Yeah. So let's look at the 111 West Monroe Street development. Cost $180 million. TIF request. How much money they're going to get from the mayor's TIF fund? $40 million. This proposal by Prime Capri Interest, LLC, will create 349 apartments, 30% affordable, plus a hotel on the lower floors and 130 spots of underground parking. The hotel would be created without city funding, developers said. Apartments include a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units. Plans show the developers plan to revive the former Monroe Club at the rooftop with shared amenities for hotel guests and residents. Amenities include a restaurant and swimming pool. Construction projected to be completed by May of 2026. So if you can scroll down to that graph, that's the 111 West Monroe development. 135 South LaSalle Street, cost $258 million. TIF requested $115 million, almost half the cost. Riverside Investment and Development and AM Trust Realty plan to build out 430 apartments, 30% of them affordable. Apartments would be a mix of studio, 1-bedroom, and 2-bedroom units. Go ahead and scroll down. The plan also includes 15,000 to 25,000 square feet for a fresh market grocer and 25,000 square feet of open space among several terraces. Renderings show construction projected to be completed by May of 2026. That's that development. Lastly, with no graphic, 208 South LaSalle Street. That would be.
Oh no, this photo is 208 South.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there was no.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So we.
Yeah. So
Okay.
that other picture was for.
Got it.
The previous one.
I jumped the gun. Okay. So this is for. Thank you, Ed. This is why we have Ed. He's my fact checker here. 135 South LaSalle Street. Cost $258 million. TIF request $115 million. I'm sorry, I'm repeating what we just went over.
No, we're at 208.
$130 million cost, TIF request $33 million. The Prime Group would build 280 upscale apartments, 30% affordable, on the 13th through the 17th floors, renderings show. The apartments would be in between the JW Marriott Hotel on the lower levels and LaSalle Hotel on the upper levels. The proposal also includes on-site amenities like a fitness center and a tenant lounge. A full-service restaurant is also in the plans. Construction is projected to be completed by September of 2024. But again, the whole issue of what small percentage is going to be affordable is just fucking laughable.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't get it, right? They don't understand that there aren't as many people who can afford these things anymore. You should adapt for that. Understand that the cost of living is way higher than it was. People don't have the incomes they used to have. And if you want success in the LaSalle Street corridor, you're going to have to make sure that people can afford to live there. This is not a difficult thing to understand. It's not a hard concept.
It is if you're a have and not a have not.
It's like they're living in the 90s and they haven't broken out of it.
And I have to take a brief intermission, so everyone please stand by.
P.L. Sullivan's International Chicken Wing and Currency Exchange is a proud supporter of Chicago Corner. Sorry. Damn it, where are those wings, Jerry?
Are we back? We're back.
Yeah, we're back.
Okay. No, Kathy, I had to take a restroom break. All right. Thank you for being patient, everybody. Let's go into our second to last story here. That speaking of people who are delusional and out of touch.
Yeah.
Jesus fucking Christ. From the Chicago Sun-Times, CHA's chief executive, Tracy Scott. CHA is open for business. Remember all of those people displaced in Chicago Housing Authority buildings that whose property has been given off to a billionaire who owns the Chicago Fire for a training field? Well, the head of the CHA says they're open for business, and she defends the Chicago Fire lease. Says agency is open to more public-private deals. Now, doesn't this kind of speak to the whole issue we just talked about in the last story about there's no affordable housing? And when these developers who are paying off Paul Vallis or the Alder people to support their campaigns and expect these real estate companies and these hedge funds and all these organizations that have got all the big money, and they want TIF fund money to develop the LaSalle Street corridor for 30% affordable housing. Why? That's not even enough. It's because, I'm sorry, you know what? I'm going to go there. It's because of people like the head of the CHA here, Tracy Scott.
What a fucking bitch, am I right?
CHA says agency is open to more public-private deals. There should be no private in public when you're serving the public. This is the heart of the privatization tale of two cities shit we're talking about. CHA Chief Executive Tracy Scott said partnerships with entities like the Fire are vital to providing the mixed income housing needed to help public housing residents thrive. How? You're giving away the land. You're not giving it away. You're charging a pittance on the land to developers, multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar developers who can afford to go buy land elsewhere. You're giving away public land or making deals, giving it away at a pittance, and ignoring the people that it's supposed to serve while you are given a position of responsibility. You're given of trust to actually serve those that are displaced, and you're not. How can we carve up and give away that land that was allotted for people who need affordable housing to a fucking billionaire for a training field? Especially in light of the fact we're probably losing the Bears to Arlington Park, and we've got Soldier Field open for business. Why don't you put the fucking Chicago Fire over there to do their training?
Yeah, that would make too much sense.
This is just more, again, if you've got money, you're special, you're privileged, fuck everybody else, man. It's just what it comes down to. This is the modern day American dream, guys. We're not prioritized. We don't matter. Those with the money who've worked hard for their money, they get the priority, not the rest of us who are struggling and working really, really hard. And, being told that, whatever, not being valued for our work anywhere, in any sector. The agency's boss on Thursday defended her decision to lease near West Side land to the Chicago Fire soccer team and she doubled down, went a step further. Saying
there's no defending that.
Went a step
There
further.
is no defending that.
Saying the agency is open to more deals with businesses. Do you know how many people are waiting for affordable housing in Chicago that were displaced when they tore down Cabrini Green? Not that Cabrini Green was any palatial estate.
Just got to notice 30 years later.
Yep. You know what, Ed? I am no longer kidding around when I play this clip.
Light your torches and go!
It's unconscionable.
The new hashtag I've been trending on Twitter. Hashtag when France.
Yeah.
For the United States. When France. Do you see how they're holding the public officials in Macron and have nothing but contempt for the citizens of France? Do you see how they're dealing with him? I'm surprised they haven't pulled out another guillotine yet.
Well, I think somebody was seen sharpening one up there. They do know how to get the people out into the streets in France. I've got to give them credit,
So this is CHA CEO Tracy Scott, who said those partnerships are vital to providing the mixed income housing needed to help public housing residents thrive. To quote, to fulfill our mission, we have to innovate, be creative with new financing tools, and form public-private partnerships because the federal government does not write a check big enough for all that we want or need in Chicago, Scott told an audience. Where at, Ed?
Oh.
Where at? The City Club of Chicago, where you need membership to attend to hear our movers and shakers talking about how they're going to take care of us.
So once again, if this is an issue that we're not getting enough federal government funds, why aren't you raising holy hell with Chuy Garcia? Tell me why.
But interestingly enough, the article says the CHA gets 95% of its funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Okay, so then they were full of shit.
Yes, exactly. Scott defended the 40-year lease with the Chicago Fire signed in early March. Rare opportunity for CHA to reactivate former urban land on the west side that sat vacant for nearly 20 years because you didn't develop it for housing. 95% of your funding from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and you didn't develop that land with that funding to bring back people who needed housing that you displaced 30 fucking years ago. The land is at the former site of Abla Homes near Roosevelt Road and Ashland Avenue. Scroll up so we can see who's... Jesus Christ. This is why people are living under bridges and in tents. Because the fucking billionaires who run the Chicago Fire need this. The fire deal will funnel $48 million in much-needed resources to the CHA for repairs and renovations of nearby buildings. Here's a thought: instead of giving TIF money to these real estate development companies, why don't you put the TIF money into the renovations of the nearby buildings that CHA needs taken care of? It's a city agency, isn't it?
It's so myopic.
If CHA needs $48 million in much needed resources for the renovation of nearby buildings, and we saw in that previous story, the city was going to give up to $118 million to a private developer to rehab a building on LaSalle Street with only 30% affordable housing. I'm no mathematician, Ed. Okay? But as you said earlier, our priorities are clearly fucked up. I said fucked up. You said they're not there. I'm saying they're fucked up.
But they are fucked up.
They are fucked up.
Yeah.
According to the lease, which Scott said enshrined the fire community. See, here's the thing. You can say, well, these are separate stories, but they're not. They're actually all connected with the very myopic disconnect from how you solve things logically and serve people across the city of Chicago, not billionaire developers with soccer teams that want their little vanity training fields, training facilities that they can afford to go purchase themselves. I don't pay attention to soccer. I don't know anything about that. Yeah, the Chicago Fire soccer team. I mean, sports in Chicago to me is baseball. Pay attention to the Chicago Fire. I don't hear anybody screaming about the Chicago Fire that would constitute. And I'm not dismissing the fact that soccer is not, an engaging sport. But come on.
There's a growing fan base for soccer,
Is there?
Which is why I thought. I mean, look, I suggested it. You mentioned it earlier. Soldier Field. Why couldn't they? If they see a huge future for support of the local soccer team like Chicago Fire, and they want to build an infrastructure around that, why don't they pursue a situation with Soldier Field since the Bears are certainly leaving?
Look at what Kathy just shared.
Target pays $1 a year.
Why? Because they're creating jobs at Devon and Sheridan while displacing hundreds of potential people, hundreds of potential tenants that need affordable housing in something that should have been developed on that property.
Yeah, I think we mentioned that a while ago. Probably the last time we were talking about the soccer field.
Kathy
I mean, seriously, how is she justifying this?
Well, let's get into it. Thank you, Kathy. Joe Moore refused to call the Keep the Promise ordinance to house displaced public. Because of course he did. Joe Moore. What a ghoul. He's a ghoul on the level of Gardner. The fire, so according to the lease, which Scott said enshrined the fire community's contributions, the fire pays $8 million up front with yearly rent of $800,000 with increase in future years. The fire also agreed to provide jobs and career training for nearby residents, which Scott said were the key to social and economic mobility. So, that's assuming that nearby residents want to work in a fucking soccer training facility. They don't have dreams to go and do something else with their lives. Their dreams are to serve the fucking soccer.
Yeah, and it also disregards the entire point that they never replaced the homes for the people who were displaced.
That's what's curiously not mentioned in this article. Deals like that will be vital to the CHA's future, Scott said. They are also key to moving toward a mixed income model and away from the old model that Scott called a mistake of concentrating poverty or concentrated disadvantage. Well, yeah, I can agree with that. You can't concentrate poverty and disadvantage, but what you can do is you can actually provide housing that is humane and contemporary and doesn't look like a fucking prison block like the old Cabrini Green buildings looked like. But that would probably cost too much money, I would imagine.
It's not with the way modern technology and the way that the contractors are able to throw stuff together really fast these days. It's just, again, it's a matter of priorities.
Here's what she says, Ed. When someone says innovation, first thing you think is public housing, right? Well, I'm here to testify that innovation is our future, and it's not just about money. The partnerships are critical, so while the federal money contributes and we can leverage that, we rely on the talent and creativity of our local development partners, Scott said.
She's making excuses.
We're relying on the talent and creativity of our local private development partners, private
what do they call this? Putting lipstick on a pig? That's what that quote is.
Scott also said CHA has benefited from its business partners and other deals. Related Midwest is currently rehabbing nearly 200 units at the CHA's Roosevelt Square, also at the former site of Abla Homes. CHA announced in early March it would begin a $145 million rehab of 2 West Side senior buildings, the Irene McCoy Gaines Apartments and Albany Terrace Apartments, with partner Michael's Development. These partnerships enable most of the projects that we do because it's usually easier to save a building than build new, Scott said. Our priority has been preserving the buildings we have and partnering on other neighborhood developments. That's bullshit.
Unless you need a soccer field.
Or in the case of what we've seen happening in Uptown with gentrification, with Crappleman, having buildings and single residency SROs. SROs, is that what they're called? Single resident occupancy buildings. Not that they were anything to write home about. You could have improved them now. But it was to tear all that stuff down for all the luxury housing that's now going up in Uptown. So their priority has not been preserving the buildings to provide affordable housing, because we should have seen that in Uptown. And maybe Kathy can chime into the chat on that. Scott also unveiled plans to build on long vacant land at Cabrini Green. The area already has 3,500 mixed-use units. The CHA plans to hire an urban planner for 2 future developments, the Oak and Larrabee and Parkside 5, which should be under construction by 2024, according to CHA spokesperson.
And they should be working on that now.
Dude, they should have started working on it 30 fucking years ago.
Yeah, that too.
When they tore them down and the land was vacant.
Yeah. And the reason why they didn't, because they were looking to see how they could probably sell that to a private industry.
Exactly. Oh my God! Scroll down a little further. Do we dare click on this other story that's showing here? Is this going on your end? That one there? Oh no, that's not it.
No,
there was an article here. More details released about the Redefine the Drive study to overhaul North Lakeshore Drive. I'm not saying the whole. Hold on, let me open it on this end and send it to you in the chat. Okay, I just sent it in the private chat.
Oh, by the way, if you're not in Chicago, apparently we have severe weather.
Oh my God, this is horrifying. More details released about. So, how long is the expressway going to be under this construction? Ed, what did they estimate?
It's they said it was going to be a 3-year project.
Yeah.
For the Kennedy.
Meanwhile, this just popped up. One of the other major, this wasn't in our show notes, but it just popped up in this article about the CHA. More details released about the Redefine the Drive study to overhaul Lakeshore Drive. The study, commissioned by the Chicago, we talked about this once before in a previous story. They want to tear up Lakeshore Drive next. Is there anything wrong with driving down Lakeshore Drive aside from fixing the potholes?
The only criticism I ever really had driving Lakeshore Drive was that goofy turn they have over by near Michigan Avenue.
Yeah, with all the stoplights.
Yeah, over in Streeterville area.
Yeah, well, they have to do that. It
just kind of slows down, and then you turn, and then you have it's like an S curve, I guess I call it.
Yeah. So. Let me open this. I'll send you this link too, because there are visualizations that will probably set our hair on fire. Let me send it in the chat.
Oh, is it the link that's in the thing here?
So this is crap. We're just discovering this article, guys. So transportation officials have released 20 new visuals as part of the ongoing study being done to revamp the northern leg of Lakeshore Drive. The Redefine the Drive study aims to overhaul many parts of Lakeshore Drive, covering the 7-mile stretch from Grand Avenue to Hollywood Avenue. The newly released visuals, which do not represent
PDF files, great. Okay.
Which do not represent the final designs, show what the changes to the roadway could look. The agencies released new visuals this month to show the proposed changes to the lakefront parks and pedestrian and bike pathways that flank Lakeshore Drive. One visualization shows adding more green space and expanding the beachfront next to Oak Street Beach. Oh, that's great. Let's clog up the S curve even more. That's already like a parking lot when you go through it. Another proposes expanding the Chicago Avenue Lakefront Plaza. Oh my God. Do we need that? Do we need to spend money on that? It's a street. It's a road. It needs to get people across the city fast. Why do we need to waste all this money congesting traffic more, lessening the lanes? We have a bike path along the lake. Oh my God, Ed. While we can't provide affordable housing for people. The project also focuses on improving the 8-lane Lakeshore Drive, evaluating the conditions of the 22 bridges and tunnels, making the roadway and surrounding areas more accessible. The Illinois Department of Transportation and the Chicago Department of Transportation have been leading the project since 2013. As part of the study, city and state officials last year unveiled 5 redesigned proposals. Keep the existing
I remember those.
Yeah, we showed these. Keep the existing systems and giving buses a priority junction. Maintain 4 lanes of traffic with a new 5th lane only for buses. Convert the existing lane into a bus-only lane. Make an existing lane a shared lane for buses and toll. You know they're going to be gunning for the toll drivers, Ed. You know they're going to be gunning for the toll drivers so they can start picking people's pockets who need to use what's already free to get downtown.
Yeah. Someone clearly said in a back room with cigars, how do we make more money off of Lakeshore Drive? Toll lane.
Shared lane for buses and toll drivers, or convert 2 of the 4 lanes for buses and tolls. Look at that. You'd have to pay a toll to use 2 of those 4 lanes. And you know what the thing is, though, Ed? They're still going to be just as congested.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to be. It's just the nature of the drive.
Yeah, you know, it's this mentality of people paying extra for preferred service, and so that now there will be express lanes on Lakeshore Drive that will cost you extra in tolls, and so they charge your iPass or whatever if you want to take those express lanes versus taking the locals. And then they'll start doing that with all the other roads. This will be a test case.
More for preferred services, Ed. Paying more for preferred services. Kind of like charter schools, don't you think?
Like charter schools, like rideshare, like a lot of things.
Preferred services instead of just improving service for everyone.
Like internet service.
It's a society that basically encourages you to feel better about being better than other people because you're paying people more money and they've got you bamboozled while they're doing it. It's like enabling our oppressors is what it is. Feeding into this mentality.
It's keeping up with the Joneses and pick yourself up by your bootstraps and get ahead of everybody else and be super elite and get in the VIP room. Get the gold leaf on your deep dish pizza.
We got 6 viewers left in the chat here on StreamYard, so let's wrap up our last story.
Oh, well, thank you for sticking with us, 6 viewers. We know it is after 11 p.m. It's past a lot of people's bedtimes. And we appreciate you sticking with us.
Tired of listening to me rant.
As we drive into the ditch.
Yeah. But look,
actually, we're not driving into the ditch. You're captain of the ship on this one.
Yeah.
It's Friday.
All right. As we take the ship back into Starbase Chicago.
In other news,
here's our last story, which is just I didn't see any good news to end on tonight, although I'll end on a plea to everybody regarding getting your ass out to vote before next Tuesday or early voting. But ComEd strikes again. Secret risk rankings unfairly target struggling customers for faster gas, electricity cutoffs, consumer group says. Haves and have-nots. This whole broadcast is, following this theme, Tale of Two Cities, haves and have-nots. This comes from Stephanie Zimmerman at the Chicago Sun-Times. We think there's a strong argument that this process is discriminatory, one consumer advocate says. You think? Illinois electric and gas companies are quietly sorting their customers into different risk categories that could mean faster disconnections for people struggling to pay their bills and more leeway for those who aren't. Let's also parse this. People struggling to pay their increasing, obscene utility bills. Okay, that constantly go up while they get deals from the city and the state. Now they're going to punish those that can't keep up with the obscene increases. Customers never see this information. It doesn't appear on bills, but consumer groups are raising questions about whether the practice of risk ranking is fair, and state regulators are now taking a look. You know, I'm sorry, utilities are not a privilege. They are a necessity.
Yeah.
If you want to do risk rankings with people that want to go buy expensive cars or spend money on luxuries, go do it there. Not with utilities for electricity, water, and utilities. This is, again, haves, have-nots. We have more money. You don't. You're subhuman. You're less of a human being. We're gonna continue to like hammer you into the ground. With electric service, this customer sorting means households placed in ComEd's riskiest categories based on data such as payment history and length of time as a customer could see their power shut off 16 days after being flagged for disconnection, compared with a more generous 40 days for customers who are considered less risky. What do you imagine the neighborhoods are for the customers who are considered less risky, Ed? Can we just speculate? Perhaps outlying suburban neighborhoods?
North side, downtown. Yes, people in the burbs.
Yeah. According to a ComEd document shared with state regulators and obtained by the Chicago Sun-Times. Like ComEd, people's gas. Should it be people's ass since gas comes from the ass? I'm just saying. And its sister company, North Shore Gas, as well as...
Comes from the Earth's ass. From the Earth's crack, anyway.
As well as the downstate electric and gas company, Amerin, sort their customers into risk groups that are treated differently in the collections and disconnections process, documents show. All four of those utilities use the same outside vendor to sort their accounts. Nicor, which serves the Chicago suburbs in northern Illinois, says it uses its own in-house system to evaluate eligibility and select customers for potential disconnection. Utilities say such algorithmic sorting processes in use for years, but only recently coming to light in documents filed with the Illinois Commerce Commission, are essential for managing collections and getting bad debt off their books. Debt off their books. They say nudging customers to pay their bills by whatever method works best for each segment helps everyone, because bad debt write-offs are ultimately paid by other customers. No, they're not.
Because how dare you even think about digging into your massive profits?
Yeah, that you're giving bonuses to your CEO for.
Such bullshit.
We have an obligation as a public service company. You're not if you're you know what? If they're a public service company, they should be publicly owned.
Yeah.
Not privately owned.
They think we're stupid. That's what it is. These private owned utility companies think we're stupid. We have to tell them no, because they keep getting the people who are in their pocket. They keep getting a yes from them. We have to tell them no. You want to increase your rates? No. Lower your profits.
Yeah. Or reallocate your profits.
Yeah.
And stop serving. We have an obligation as a public service company to all of our ratepayers. Oh, sure they do, says Jason Decker, ComEd's Vice President of Customer Financial Operations, adding that disconnection is always a tool of last resort. No, it's not.
You know what he's trying to pit all the customers against each other. It's not their fault that they're raking in massive profits. It's all the other customers' fault that's everything is going on, and some people can't afford to pay their utilities.
And if you can't afford to pay on time, despite the fact we've raised our prices because of our obscene profits, it's because you're a deadbeat, Ed. How dare you suggest we can't make our profits? If you can't keep up with it, it means you're wrong, not we are, because we've raised the rates even though we don't need to raise the rates. It's all in the spirit of profit. ComEd notes that its quickest disconnect time of 16 days happens only after an account is gone unpaid for at least 2 billing cycles, giving customers at least 60 days to make arrangements. But some consumer advocates say routing people with a history of bill paying problems onto a track with faster disconnections is unfair. And it is, because if you've got trouble making your payments, clearly you're financially distressed. So why would you want to take away somebody's electricity with a disconnect as opposed to figure out how could you work with them? Or maybe lower the rates in those areas, or just lower the rates altogether so people can keep up with these costs.
Or if you're going to have a standard disconnect time, you should be equitable across the board.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be penalizing people.
Because of the neighborhood that they live in. And we know how segregated Chicago is.
I'm sorry, Jerry, but I think right now I have to go off on a clip rant.
I want you to get up now. I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"
Okay, I'm back from the window.
We think there's a strong argument that this process is discriminatory, says Karen Lusan, a former assistant public utilities bureau chief for the Illinois Attorney General's office, who's now with the nonprofit National Consumer Law Center. It's sort of a cyclical process in that the customer is now considered riskier, is going to receive the disconnection notices quicker, is going to get disconnected, is going to get late fees. That's the other thing that we factor in here, the late fees. The late fees that don't really pay for anything other than you have the ability to extort more money from somebody because they couldn't pay you on time. So you're gonna make somebody pay more money who couldn't afford it to begin with and penalize them even more. People aren't choosing not to pay. It's because the bills are so unaffordable, she says, and bills are bound to get bigger as all the utilities have asked the ICC for rate increases. ComEd wants a record $1.47 billion over 4 years, which would bump up the average residential bill by $17 a month by 2027. Do you know what I pay in my little 2-flat apartment, even though I've got electricity going into the basement to help the wash machines and the lights for my tenant? $170, I think, a month for my second floor apartment in the basement. $170, maybe a little bit more.
For
my
electric?
My gas right now during the winter, my gas averages $250 to $300 a month. It's obscene.
I guess I'm conserving my electricity a little better over here, but maybe I just don't use as much.
Well, as an owner of a building, I have a tenant on the first floor, so
okay. So you're supporting 2 units. Okay.
No, I'm not supporting 2. No. They pay their own gas and electric. I'm paying for my unit in the basement, which means gas that goes into the basement to the dryer, and electricity that powers the dryer and the wash machine and the lights in the basement and the lights in the counter.
So it adds up, yeah.
Yeah. So my bill, that's, and I'm not complaining. I'm just telling you. I mean, I'm happy to provide that for my tenants. That's my responsibility. But this is what it's like for anybody that might be a homeowner, or even if it's less because you're in your own unit. It's ridiculous, the amount of money that it costs to have electricity and gas. And they want to hike it up even more.
Yeah, tell them no.
People's gas wants 400. Who's going to tell them no, Ed?
We will tell them no.
Who's supposed to tell them no?
Who's supposed to tell them no? All our legislators.
The ones that are paid off by all those big donors we talked about in the other story.
I mean, look, at some point, breaking the straw in the camel's back, or whatever the hell the metaphor is, something's going to happen where
your torches and go.
Yep, that is going to happen eventually when nobody can afford to do anything anymore because it is unaffordable to live. And when it becomes unaffordable to live for a number of the masses, they're not going to have anything left to do, and they're not going to have any reservations left than to finally #win France. And it's going to be your own damn fault. ComEd.
People's Gas.
People's
Gas wants $402 million, or an increase of almost $12 a month. Nicor is seeking $321 million, and North Shore Gas is asking for $18.5 million.
Tell them no.
Lusan said she first heard about risk ranking during the COVID pandemic in talks with utilities about how to mitigate disconnections. So this has been going on for a long time, Ed, but it was COVID that suddenly shined a light on it. Mm-hmm. State legislators also began looking at it, and in late 2021, ICC staff sent all the utilities a series of questions about whether they use any programs, algorithms, formulae, or other predictive tools in targeting people for disconnection. Because it's an opaque process, no individual utility customer knows what their risk rank is. Question: how am I going to pay? Many of the people walking into the Northwest Center, a nonprofit agency in Chicago's Belmont-Cragen neighborhood that does financial and housing counseling, are facing potentially disruptive and costly utility shutoffs. The center helps people apply for grants through the Low-Income Home Energy Assistance Program, also known as LIHEAP. Jose Silva, I think Art might be doing some work for them. I'm not sure. I know he's working with a entity that helps people with their utility bills. Jose Silva of Belmont-Cragen sought help there this month for his family's ComEd and People's Gas bills, which ballooned to a combined $1,379 after he suffered a debilitating inner ear problem that forced him to stay home from his 28-year job at the sheet metal business. Silva is getting medical treatment and physical therapy and hopes to return to work soon, but meanwhile, the bills have piled up. I'm not working, so I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to pay? I've got a lot of doctor's bills, he says. Let's scroll up to Mr. Silva here. There's another picture. Silva has no way of knowing what risk category he's in, but he thinks all customers should be treated the same when it comes to disconnections. It should be the same for those who have no money and those who do, he says. Jose Villalobos and Carmen de Leon agree. The husband and wife from Hermosa, who have 4 children, came to the Northwest Center to apply for LIHEAP after Jose's income dropped, inflation hit, and they fell behind on their utility bills. I just want things to be equal for everyone, De Leon says. Risk ranking has been used for years and in some cases decades by utilities. First, we're hearing about it. ComEd, People's Gas, and North Shore Gas, and Ameren all use a Nevada incorporated company called Total Solutions, Inc., or TSI, which puts customer payment data such as how often a person pays late, how long they've lived at their home, and whether they've defaulted on a payment plan into a proprietary formula to figure out how likely an account is to default in the future. ComEd uses 8 risk segments for its customers according to a chart it provided the ICC. All 8 groups get 21 days to pay their monthly bills on time. A potential disconnection comes into play after a household had missed paying 2 average monthly bills. After that, things diverge. The 2 riskiest groups are sending disconnection notice in as little as 6 days, compared with 30 days for the least less risky groups. Again, neighborhoods, zip codes. Those risky groups can be shut off in 16 days, compared with 40 days for the least risky customers. Consumer advocates worry that because LIHEAP applications can take 30 days, some households on the 16-day track could get cut off as they wait for help. ComEd says it manually pauses disconnection if it's informed of a pending LIHEAP application. See what I'm doing here? The company says it is working with state officials to try to automate that. ComEd used to target the highest risk customer groups when they hit $100 in past due bills, while letting the 2 least risky groups accumulate $300 in bills, Ed. Those amounts were eliminated last year to make the process more fair, the company says. In their written answers to ICC staff, Peoples and North Shore said they sort gas customers into 4 categories, and that as a general practice, higher risk customers are prioritized for collection action sooner than less risky customers, and customers with the highest, oldest arrears get more attention. All the utilities stress that they provide information about public and private grant programs and payment plans to struggling customers so people can take action and avoid shutoffs. The utilities defend the practices as fair and accurate, blah, 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 blah. This is clearly about what neighborhood you live in, what demographic you might be, and how less valued you are than other customers that live in other neighborhoods that could be of other races.
I'm reminded of a clip from Fight Club. I'm wondering if I should be allowed to play it.
Do you have it loaded?
I do have it. Do you think we'll get dinged?
I don't care. I gotta appeal anything else. So what the hell?
If you don't mind.
They're going to send one to the New York Times, one to the LA Times press release style. Look, the people you are after are the people you depend on. We cook your meals. We haul your trash. We connect your calls. We drive your ambulances. We guard you while you sleep. Do not fuck with us.
I need to watch that movie again. It's been a long time.
They don't get it. I mean, they're basically all of these corporations, the utility companies, all these other price gouging companies, they're setting us up for Fight Club. They're just, and all we really have to do is wait for the right Tyler Durden to show up, and then buildings are going to start dropping, and then you have only themselves to blame. And I'm not saying I'm going to do it, and this is not a threat. It's a prediction.
Look what's happening in France right now. We are in the, I don't even think we're in the decline of empire. The United States is in the end of empire right now. The wealth disparity, the poverty, repealing child labor laws. This is like pre-1920 stock markets, Gilded Age type of stuff. We've devolved to an era where we don't value each other. We don't look forward. We don't treat each other equally. Just look at this mayoral race. The black guy and the white guy. The tale of two cities, the haves and the have-nots. Oh, Brandon Johnson didn't pay his water bill. Oh, okay. Yeah, okay. Paul Vallis doesn't live in Chicago. Which is worse? Paul's got a record of showing how useless he is in other cities and how much damage he's done. Johnson, no, I'll give him a chance. And if he fucks up, we'll be critical of him.
Yep.
So anyway, what's the positive story at the end of tonight? There is no positive story. We live in an existential crisis right now, and you all need to, if you haven't already, get out and vote. And I can't tell you who to vote for. I think for the past several months, since middle of last year, we've been very attentive in analyzing all the candidates and come down to two. Okay, I was wrong about my choice, and I've admitted it. Okay, and although I don't think that these two candidates right now either is ideal, clearly one is better than the other in serving the interests of the entirety of Chicago, not just the haves in this tale of two cities class war. So if you haven't voted, yeah, Chicago, your life and your future does depend on it. Please get out and vote. Bring those voting numbers up. Get out there and vote for the candidate that you feel is going to best represent your values and all of your interests, not just the special privatized ones that plan on coming in and carving it all up for their benefit. Ed?
And don't let it end there. Realizing that electoral politics is only one part of the puzzle. You can't just vote every number of years and then sit back and let everything rip. You got to get involved somehow, whether it's with your community or whether you have to, just hassle your representatives to make sure that they're staying on track. You can't just vote and think that you're done for the day. That's the problem that a lot of people have right now with electoral politics, is they think that people will just come out and they're just going to do their civic duty and vote, and then they're going to go back to sleep for another number of years, and then nothing will get solved. Because nothing will get solved. We have to do more. We're doing more by doing this live stream, by informing you, by letting you know of the things that we see going on and the bullshit when it happens. So thanks again to our Patreon supporters. And, you know, you want to throw a few bucks our way, patreon.com/Chicago Corner, or just let people know where our live stream is.
I really want to be able to come back onto this show every week and stop feeling like I'm living in an existential crisis where I ask myself, what am I doing here? Because I just feel like I'm pissing in the wind every Tuesday and Friday. Look, I'm so glad and grateful that Lori Lightfoot is gone. A big part of Chicago Corner's mission statement for this past year has been, what can we cover to make sure that, I mean, and it has nothing to do with us. Okay. I'm not acting like we had anything to do with that, but to contribute to the conversation, on why she was so wrong. And although she was so confident and arrogant that she was going to win, and she's gone. Okay. Now we're facing another crisis in the two candidates who are running. Are we going to have Rahm Emanuel 3.0, 3 inches taller than Rahm Emanuel? Or are we going to have Brandon Johnson, who we believe is going to represent not just the business interests that we need to cultivate here in Chicago, but all of Chicagoans' interests across the city in every neighborhood, by virtue of the fact that he understands the plight of the have-nots in this tale of two cities. So, you've got your marching orders, Chicago. Please go out and make a difference. And as Ed said earlier, it doesn't stop with the voting booth. We got to do more. We got to get more people out. We got to have more conversations focusing on why a candidate is better, why the alternate opponent isn't. It's not about race, not about D's, not about ours. This is a class struggle for all of us. And I don't know about you, but I'm not part of that 1%. I don't feel like I'm a temporarily inconvenienced millionaire that has to vote with the candidate that doesn't want to pay doesn't feel that people need to pay taxes, or you're in an upper, echelon of control and power that only serves yourself and not all the people that we're supposed to be taking care of around us. So that's all I got. Ed, we'll be back Tuesday. Covering the election.
Tuesday. Yeah.
Crossing our fingers with good news.
Yeah, another election coverage Tuesday. So that's going to be exciting and nerve-wracking and probably infuriating. But we'll be here covering that. We will, if we have time, also throw some other stories in there. Maybe we can coax Kira into coming back on again for this election coverage. We'll see.
We'll see
how she's feeling about that. But it's going to be a good Taco Tuesday. That's April 4th, Election Day. And don't forget that April 5th, the day after, is National Deep Dish Pizza Day. So
how could we forget with Ed here to remind us?
So if you're inclined into making your own deep dish pizza at home, you can head to realdeepdish.com and you can find all the recipes and some tips and stuff over there. And you can make your dough like a day or two ahead of time. It'll be a lot better than if you make it the same day. And the recipe's pretty easy to follow.
Yes!
All right. I'm noticing in the live chat, Kathy's still around. Half clever. You guys must be tired. Long show. It's 11:28, and I got a half an hour to figure out where to forage for dinner before places close. So I'm going to take us out. Ed, as always, thanks again for co-hosting tonight. Wonderful insights, wonderful commentary. I love co-hosting with you. To everyone else in Chicago, please remember to get out and vote early on Monday or on Tuesday. Our lives are going to depend on it here in Chicago. And as always, as we go into the weekend, please remember to watch out for each other, stay safe, be vigilant, take care of each other, and return next Tuesday when we'll be covering the election results. And as you know, if it's happening on the streets, you'll hear about it here on Chicago Corner. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you all for your support and continued patronage and contributions in the live chat. I'm out. Whew. Stay safe, Chicago.
Get out. And don't come back until you've redeemed yourselves.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.